Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace episode 120, and that's right, we are calling this a numbered entry in GameFace.
No more freestyling.
Yeah, we used to call these episodes GameFace Freestyle. Just to let you know, Sam is not here today. He's off gallivanting in Las Vegas, hopefully winning tons of money. So we do not have a TriCaster TD today. So unfortunately, we're going to be stuck with this two-shot throughout the entire episode, and then the show will be assembled in post-production. So
for those of you who actually look at the screen, just doing something else and listening.
Well, actually, the last time
you said, I would do.
Well, actually, the last time you said that, a lot of people were in the comments saying, I do watch the video all the way through. So we do have a lot of people who watch the video version.
I can't think of anything I watch for 3 hours.
Yeah, what people stop and then come back to
forth,
it. Yeah. Also, the show is on iTunes, and we have like 50 reviews. We have a 5-star review on iTunes right now. It would be great if more of you went on and put your take on GameFace on there. The more reviews we get, the more the show bubbles up to new people, and that would be a great help. As we mentioned before, it's a new month. It is March, so if you guys could go into Twitch Prime and subscribe to us again for the March month, that would be great. If you've already done it once, all you have to do is go to twitch.tv/SIFTDgames and click the little button above the player there, and you're basically going to give us $2.50 for doing nothing other than clicking a button. So we'd appreciate it very much. Matt, it's been a very, very slow week in video games.
Yeah, speaking of doing nothing.
Yeah, I mean, not really a slow week in games, but a slow week for games.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff was announced this week and things like that, so we have a good show, but not a lot of games to play.
I've been replaying stuff I already played. Basically.
Yeah. I've been playing Mulaka. I've been playing Yakuza 6. I've been forging my way through that a little bit more.
I've been bouncing back and forth between Yakuza 6 and Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition, which is free on Xbox Live Gold this week.
By the way, my demo save for Yakuza 6 did not carry over to the final game. And I don't know if that's because I have review code or what, but I had to start all over from scratch and watch that hour of cinemas again to begin. I very quickly figured out how to skip the cinemas in that game.
Right, they do let you skip them.
Yeah, which is nice. Even when you start the first time, you can skip them. I've been playing Mulaka a little bit. I've been working on a thing for Super Seducer, which was taken off of PSN yesterday. I've been working on...
I assume you get to keep it if you already bought it.
Well, I'm actually playing it on Steam. I'm not playing it on PS4. I got a code from the publisher, actually. They reached out and said, hey, do you want a code for this? I'm like, sure. And then, like, the next day, it literally got taken down from PSN. So I'm working on a cut of the game that will clearly demonstrate why the game was removed from PSN. That should be going up over the next couple of days. Also, tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific, we'll be doing the next episode of Today's High Score. Last week's was absolutely great. Wall-to-wall calls for 2 hours. I actually had to, cut it off at a certain point. We'd even get through all the topics that I wanted to bring up in the show. So 1 p.m. Pacific tomorrow for Today's High Score. Get on there, get on Skype, be a part of it. It was a lot of fun, and the last week's show was really great. So thank you very much to everyone who participated, and hopefully it just keeps getting better and better as the show goes on. So with that, let's get into the first topic for this week's show. Got some really bad news today, Matt. Wake up in the morning, climb out of bed, crawl back to my office, and what's the first thing I see on SIFTD? It's that Days Gone has been delayed into 2019. Of course, one of my games from the SIFTD Fantasy Draft. And for those of you who may not know what we're talking about because you found us on iTunes, or maybe you're just listening to the show and you just got onto our Patreon, every year Matt and I do a video game fantasy draft. We've been doing it for several years now. And it's just like fantasy football. We take turns drafting games. And then at the end of the year, we add up their aggregate score from Metacritic, and whoever has the group of games with the highest aggregate score wins the league. And in years past, games would get delayed out of the year, and you would just get a 0 for that game. And I have really fallen prey to that a lot over the last few years. I have a reputation for picking games that end up getting delayed out of the year, and Days Gone has been delayed out of 2018. Now, this year, we instituted a caveat, and thank God we did.
So Days Gone was in your main...
It was in my main lineup, yep. I think it was like my 6th or 7th pick, if I remember correctly. Maybe higher than that, even. And this year, we changed the rules a little bit so that we both have 2 alternates. And so my first alternate is A Way Out. So now A Way Out comes off the bench for me and is now a part of my team.
And that's coming out.
I honestly wouldn't even be surprised if that game gets delayed out of...
I don't know about out of 2018.
I mean, I never dreamed Days Gone would be delayed, Matt.
Really?
No. Do you realize that studio has not put out a game since, like, 2012?
Yeah.
2012!
Well,
it's 2018. They've been working on this for 6 years.
We've seen so little of it that, like,
We did mention it on the draft show that it had kind of gone underground a little bit. And since the draft, it's been another few months. We hadn't heard anything.
I figured it was going to be like a late 2018 thing, but it wasn't one of my top picks to delay out of the year. But it doesn't super shock me that it happened.
I was pretty confident. I mean, look, at this point with our fantasy draft, I feel like I play on the extreme conservative side when picking games, especially this year. I was like, there's no way in hell any game I pick is not coming out. It's just not going to happen.
I didn't pick Days Gone in part because of that, also in part because I don't think Nova's going to review all that well. Like I don't know how I feel about that game still.
So
I feel better about it than I do about A Way Out, but that's a different thing.
Yeah. So how does this impact Sony's 2018, if at all?
Well, I mean, probably not a huge amount because like they still have all the multi-platform stuff, but there's been some rumors that like some of this stuff, we'll get to Black Ops later, but there's been some stuff I read that said that like some of the Black Ops promotional stuff has Xbox branding on it, which means Xbox might have gotten that back.
Got that deal back.
Because the Xbox One X makes that version the definitive multi-platform version. And so if Activision switched its loyalties that way, that could impact Sony to some degree. I mean, I think Sony is safe just in the sense that people play everything on that platform. But in terms of exclusives, like you got to wonder if there's anything in their back pocket, or if it's just going to be they're going to ride the third parties for the latter half of the year.
But it feels like Sony's been doing that for the past. Like it happened last year. The first party output was not great.
Yeah, Sony did not have a great last quarter last year in terms of their own games.
Yeah, they really didn't have a big blockbuster for Q4 last year.
No, and so it makes you wonder, like, do they have anything up their sleeve?
Obviously, we have God of War this year. Yeah, it looks like Dreams is coming.
Dreams is definitely coming, but I don't think Dreams is gonna move the needle in terms of the thing. The audience Days Gone was after.
Right. It may be a great game, but I don't see it selling 8 million copies.
No. God of War is, God of War soon. If you're talking about something at the end of the year, it would have to be something we don't know about, or Last of Us 2 is way further along than anyone suspects, including Naughty Dog.
Because that's the other question. So it gets Days Gone delayed in 2019. If The Last of Us Part 2 is scheduled to come out in 2019, you have two first-party zombie games that are very similar.
Well, maybe. Like, we still don't really know what the gameplay loop is in Days Gone.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know anything about what you're doing on a moment-to-moment basis. Just sort of
here's this scenario.
Things that scenarios happen, little features, and you run from this thing, and you can jump over this. It's like, but like in terms of like, if I had to describe Days Gone as like what the game is to someone, I wouldn't know how to do it. 'Cause is it open world? Is it?
I would just say it's a zombie game where you can manipulate the zombies to help you.
I guess.
I think that's probably the tagline that I would give somebody.
We don't have like an aerial view of what this game is still yet.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel like that might be because they don't know either.
Yeah.
It feels like very nebulous and has always felt that way. It's always felt like a game that's being built around a tech trick, and sometimes that goes real wonky. And we'll see what it becomes.
Well, you're talking about tech where you're rendering hundreds of zombies on screen
and you're like,
at once.
we can do that, and now we got to come up with a reason to do it, and that you're
a compelling reason to do it.
And sometimes when you work backwards like that, it can be not so much with the good.
There could be technical issues too, where they're having problems getting solid frame rates out of the game, and then usually when that happens,
trying to make the PS4 vanilla version work without the PS4 Pro added horsepower. It could be anything.
And then what happens is you end up, instead of 20 different zombie models, you end up with like 8.
Right. Everybody's wearing the same shirt.
Right. Or they're just clones. It's like almost every zombie looks the same, which would be a big detriment for a game that's built around hordes of zombies. We'll see with State of Decay 2.
And which has been shown that without that problem, and then if there's one thing we know, people lose their minds when something doesn't look exactly like the promotional material. And like to this day, you've got people making Witcher 3 mods to make it look more like that one demo at E3 3 years before it came out, as though the real game isn't like beautiful as it is.
Yep.
But like you've just got that thing of like it looked like this first, and anything else is a lie. And so if Days Gone comes out and doesn't deliver on that, like they're going to get roasted by the core demographic who cares about that kind of thing, and that's not the press you want.
Yeah, I don't think it's a huge deal that it was delayed out as far as Sony's prospects for the year. It looks like Kingdom Hearts 3 may come out this year.
Yeah.
And while it is multi-platform, I think it'll do really well for Sony.
Yeah, it's a PlayStation-identified franchise.
For sure.
And that's also the only place to get all the other games.
Yeah.
So.
And God of War, I'm sure, is going to sell really well, provided it is not terrible.
And they may have something else we don't know about yet. Sony's certainly large enough to have other things going on. Maybe Sucker Punch's samurai game, whose name like Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah.
Maybe that's further along than we think.
I'd be really shocked if that came out this year. We only have that one trailer for it so far.
Yeah, but at the same time, what the hell has Sucker Punch been doing?
Yeah. I mean, they're another studio that hasn't put out a game in a really long time.
The last thing they did was First Light, the kind of the expansion / 0.5 release.
Yeah, that was what, 4 years ago?
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So that was near the beginning.
Yeah, and look, they're a good studio. They don't generally take a long time.
They don't screw around. So they're Ghost of Tsushima could be, the time is about right unless they really had a long pre-production run-up to getting this thing right. So that could be their play there.
Yeah. Right now, Sony,
maybe they're leaning real hard on the Spyro thing.
Yeah. Well, right now, Sony is in that sweet spot where it has just tens of millions of install base out there. And that is kind of Sony's business model. It hasn't been, let's make all our money off first-party stuff like Nintendo does.
Yeah.
It's really, let's get everybody on our platform, and then we make a little bit of cash off our first-party stuff and get people to buy our console because of our first-party stuff, but let's really make all our money off of licensing fees from third parties. Mm-hmm. And so in the grand scheme of things, financially, I think Sony's okay. Yeah. I think from the perspective of the player who owns a PS4, maybe you're a little disappointed.
Maybe, but look, Days Gone is not going to make or break my year, one way or the other. So, it's okay. I think it's more disappointing for you because it's your team.
Yeah, it definitely hurt a little bit, without a doubt.
Yeah, we'll see. And again, Nintendo isn't really competing on the same level as Sony is. So I'm sure they don't really seem to consider each other competitors. And while it's disappointing to lose what could have been a big, or at least a high-profile release for the end of the year, it's not like Microsoft has anything else to counter it either.
Yeah.
So it's, the question becomes almost like, does it matter? Not just in the sense of like people who have PlayStation 4s have other things to play. Does it matter in the sense that can Microsoft even capitalize on that?
No, you're right.
And the answer so far for the last couple of years has basically been no.
No, a resounding no.
So.
Yeah, it's really missed opportunities where Sony has kind of fallen down. And I would argue maybe Nintendo's kind of been well positioned to take advantage of that.
Nintendo doesn't care. Nintendo doesn't.
Yeah. Well,
that's generations old though. They're it goes back to the Wii where they're just like, we're not competing with them. We don't want to do that anymore.
Well, we have a topic a little later where maybe we'll discuss whether Sony and Nintendo are in fact competing. Maybe that's starting to change a little bit now with the success of the Switch.
I doubt it.
We'll see. All right, let's move next to the biggest story of the week, undoubtedly, which was the Nintendo Direct that happened yesterday. Mm-hmm. A full 30-minute Direct loaded with announcements. I struggle to say loaded with new game announcements, but loaded with announcements.
New games for the Switch.
Yeah.
They're new to you, as NBC used to say about reruns.
If you only owned a Switch, they're new to you. But
who is that?
There are some.
It's like
there's 10 million people.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they didn't own anything else. Even the Dark Souls segment said, if you've never played Dark Souls before, welcome to it. I'm like, oh, who the hell is buying this for their first Dark Souls? Come on.
They're buying it because it's Dark Souls portable. Yeah.
It was the only reason I could imagine someone would settle for half the frame rate of literally every other version coming out of that remaster.
Yeah.
You're intentionally buying the most inferior version of this version of the game.
Yeah.
To play it on a bus? I don't know. I would never want to play something with no pause feature handheld.
I think another thing too is that just a lot of people love Dark Souls, and they're totally fine double dipping and giving more money to From Software.
Sure, but most of the people, I know one guy who's getting the Switch version, and literally every other Dark Souls fan I know is getting either the PC or the PS4 version or both. And most of them say, I'm getting one of those first, and I'll get the other one when it's on sale to play it again. No, none of them are getting if the Switch version was 60 frames, I think they would. But like the halved frame rate, and also if you see the footage of it in this direct, the textures are still kind of the muddy, old last gen. I mean, the Switch is weak. It's a weak piece of hardware compared to its. Look, they're not competitors really because they're just aiming for different markets. But like compared to the PlayStation and the Xbox, like it's not there.
It's also a terrible franchise for a handheld platform.
Yeah, it's not a thing.
It's not one of those games where you can just save whenever you want, put it back in your bag, and come back and start it up. Like,
I mean, they better have some kind of like sleep state or something feature, or something that pauses the game. But you can't really do that with the always online element. Like, it's just not suited for it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think people are so happy that Dark Souls is coming to a Nintendo platform.
I guess
it'll sell. I mean,
sure it'll sell, but like,
because you figure out of the 10 people who bought a Wii U,
it's just never a thing I've ever wanted to do. Play Dark Souls handheld. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, probably
unless you fundamentally alter the game.
I'm guessing 3 or 4 million out of those 10 million people who bought a Wii U really only play Nintendo consoles. And those people probably have never played Dark Souls, and I think pretty much all of them are going to buy this. So I think it'll sell pretty well.
I don't know about that.
I don't know if it deserves the sales that it's going to get.
I think it's going to get less sales on Switch than people think. And we'll see what the reviews look like, too.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing, the big question becomes, can the Switch run Blighttown better than the last-gen systems did? Probably.
I mean, I've been playing Dark Souls backwards compatible on Xbox One, and its frame rates just bottom
even
out.
Even on PC, Blighttown is a disaster. It's just, I don't know what the deal. There's a technical reason for it that Digital Foundry has gone into, but I don't know what it is because I don't care that much. Also, it doesn't bother me that much. It's I used to play N64 games. I can get through this. It's fine. But I played Bloodborne and I never even noticed the frame pacing problems. It's just,
I didn't think Bloodborne was as bad as Dark Souls.
Bloodborne has frame pacing issues that some people just can't deal with. It doesn't bother me that much, but it's there. And which is different from a frame rate problem.
Yeah.
And so we'll see. I mean, that's the thing is if this thing doesn't run at a rock solid 30 throughout everything, why did you even do it?
Yeah.
So
money.
Well, yeah, money.
It's like we always say, if you can't figure out why something's happening, always follow the money.
Right, but we don't like to do that with Nintendo because apparently Nintendo's immune from that. I mean, look, man, they put that amiibo, the Praise the Sun amiibo.
Yeah, we haven't even brought that up yet.
And amiibo, Dark Souls amiibo, awesome. I'll buy that. Oh, it's a GameStop exclusive. It sold out in 10 minutes and I'll never see it again. Just like that Cloud.
It's a GameStop exclusive. It sold out in 10 minutes and it costs more than any amiibo ever.
Stupid.
Did you get one?
No, of course I didn't. It sold out by the time I watched the video of the Direct. I was like, the Direct was over. I was like, I should go get that. Oh, it's gone.
Right, it was gone that fast.
It was gone by the time the Direct was over.
Wow.
Because they made none of them. They didn't make anything.
They'll make more of those, I think.
They've never made more of a GameStop exclusive amiibo before. Because I tried to get the Player 2 Cloud one that they did, and they never got any more of them.
Wow.
They wouldn't even take pre-orders in the hopes that they might get more.
That's why this sold out so fast.
Yeah. So, maybe make more.
If you want to.
Because there's probably people who want to give you their damn money.
Yeah.
You idiots.
I wonder how many the allotment was.
I don't know what that would be. But
it's a good way to drive sales.
I've gotten store exclusive amiibos on semi-regularly, and the only store I could never get unless I got lucky pre-ordering along is GameStop.
Wow.
Everything else, Amazon's comes back into stock, Best Buy's, Target's, it all comes back eventually. You can catch them on the website, but I've never seen GameStop restock them.
How much do you think that amiibo is going to go for on eBay?
If it's anything like around the time of the Breath of the Wild, the out-of-print Zelda stuff was, and the Zelda stuff that came out with Breath of the Wild, that was instantly gone. Those were going for $70, $80.
That's actually not as bad as I thought.
The Wind Waker, there was a Wind Waker 2-pack that came out a month before Breath of the Wild. That was going for $180.
Jeez.
The Wind Waker Link, the Toon Link that came out from the Smash Brothers line was going for almost $200.
Wow.
Because it was the only way to get some of these things. And so it wouldn't surprise me if this thing starts selling on eBay for $80, $70, $80.
All right, let's start talking about some of the other stuff because there was a lot of announcements.
Very expensive.
And by the way, this is not the only announcements. We kind of just picked the big ones, or at least ones we thought.
I think if my count was right, I think they talked about 20 games.
Yeah.
And 12 of them were ports.
Yeah.
Or remakes.
The entire archive is up on SIFTD if you want to watch it. It's 30 minutes long. Also, I did kind of a live blog in the comments while it was going on. So if you want to just jump around and not watch anything, you can just look at my log and kind of just scrub around and see and look at the stuff you want to. But anyway, we're going to talk about the big stuff. Probably the biggest announcement, even bigger than Dark Souls, because we already knew about that. Super Smash Bros. For Switch. Mm-hmm. Not such a big deal for us because we've literally been talking about this for months on GameFace. Well,
it's super obvious. The big thing is that
we also said it was coming out this year.
The big thing is that it turns out it's actually not a port; it's a new game.
It's not.
That's what I read today. Is that it's an actual new game?
Because when I went to bed last night, it was still like people like didn't know and were wondering.
I saw this morning that someone was saying that like Sakurai's directing it, and it's a new port.
It is. A new port.
It's a new game. Development began immediately after the last DLC was finished for the Wii U version.
How would we ever know other than if they told us whether it was a new game or it's just the same game?
Well, all 4 Smash Bros. Games are instantly identifiable as different. They're all completely different in terms of how they play.
Yeah, I guess you're right. There's always little caveats with the gameplay. I'm not a big Smash Brothers guy.
Neither am I, but I can tell
it is probably the Nintendo franchise I care about the least.
I wouldn't go that far, but like it is the one that I expect some of the least out of in the term. Because
maybe a better way to phrase it is, it's the Nintendo franchise that millions of people absolutely love that I care about the least.
Yeah, I mean it's just like, also like I don't enjoy how it's played competitively. Like I don't find it interesting, and I don't want to play it because the fun of Smash Brothers to me is the chaos of it and the chaos of the items and the crazy levels, and that's not what competitive Smash Bros. Is about. Yeah. It's about eliminating randomness and just having it be rolling around like idiots for 40 minutes while I wait for Street Fighter to start. But like, oh my God! Like,
I just don't like the way it plays. Honestly, I just don't think
I like playing it. I just don't care about high level competition with it. And it's like it's not like there's people that bash it and say like it's stupid and it's for children.
I don't say that.
It's like it takes a very high level of skill to play at that level, but it takes a very high level of skill to do a lot of things that I want to watch.
Right.
Like it's like
like professional darts.
Right. I would like to go to the World Championship.
Really?
Because I don't know if you've ever seen that televised.
I watch it, yeah.
And it's like, I don't care about the darts, but like everybody's sitting at these giant Viking long tables with pitchers of beer. I'm like, it looks like a great afternoon.
A fun time, yeah, for sure.
Like I don't know if I'd ever pay attention to the guys throwing darts up front, but like that looks like a good day.
They didn't show much of Smash.
No, it's just the Splatoon guys basically saw
Inklings are going to be in the game.
Inklings saw the logo looming behind them, and you see a silhouette of like Breath of the Wild Link and Mario, who I assume is Odyssey Mario.
I'm assuming too, but I really couldn't tell by the silhouette.
It has to be. I mean, it has to be. The Cappy must be in there somewhere.
Link definitely looked like Breath of the Wild Link.
He's definitely Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, and you're probably right. Like, there's going to be a Mario where you use Cappy, which could actually completely change the way you've played Mario in the past.
Yeah, it could make a big difference in how Mario works. Mario could become a little more Kirby-ish.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
Which he certainly did in Odyssey.
Yeah, because imagine if you could possess some of the items that come down into the game. What are those called? Those like one-off items in Smash? There's a word for it.
I don't know.
Where like the Pokemon come out. There's a word for it. I can't remember it. I'm sure somebody who's watching this will put it in the comments. But yeah, imagine if like a Pokemon came down and you could possess the Pokemon to take control of the Pokemon,
or you could possess other characters, or you could possess background items, or there's a lot of stuff you could do with that.
Yeah, it could provide a really, really unique mechanic for the game. I guess we'll wait and see.
I'm curious to see how they make
it. Who reported that it was a new game? Do you remember?
I can't remember. I saw it right.
Was it a reliable source?
People talking about it on like Reset Era and stuff. And if people usually Reset Era people are pretty good about pointing out something being false.
Well, they're also hardcore Nintendo fans, and
right?
They tend to be a little optimistic when they talk about Nintendo.
Optimistic in terms of like opinions, but not they're not generally that way about facts. They're very careful about not getting their hopes up about things that are and aren't real.
I have never visited Reset Era. I've never gone there.
I pay some attention to it just because it is.
It's the new NeoGAF for people who don't know.
It is the new NeoGAF, more or less, and a lot of the insanity that comes with that came with them, and it is just the Nintendo fandom there is and it's astounding to me. Like
I mean, NeoGAF used to be like that
right,
too.
but this is like sometimes it's to a new level, and like
oh jeez, that's saying something.
Like I mean, stuff like now that Breath of the Wild is out, do any games matter anymore? And like, it's just like and like you can talk about like you see it a little bit like oh well they just didn't announce the Switch version of Black Ops 4 because Nintendo wants it to be a secret. It's like no, it doesn't exist, people. Like.
We have a few people on SIFTD who are just...
They're in very strong denial about how weak the system hardware is and how no one wants to make their own separate version.
It's not even just that. It's just that I think hardcore Nintendo fans, unlike even Sony ponies or whatever they call them, or Xbots, they're just like delusional at times. Oh, yeah. Like they're completely blind to reality.
Well, they also want, the Switch is the first sign of like mainstream life Nintendo's shown. Since the Wii, but really since the GameCube, if you're talking about real gaming.
No, you're right.
The Wii was kind of a detour into like, hey, we got these old people to buy Wii Sports for a day. Like, let's explain, and like I feel like Nintendo sort of left the core demographic that has supported them for how many decades behind a little bit there, and came back to them with this system. And the Wii U was still kind of trying to. Like, there was like this weird assumption that the casual market that like made the Wii a giant success were going to come back and buy another system, which they really didn't.
No.
Honestly, they didn't in droves. In fact,
they were smart, they should probably just re-release like a new version of Wii Sports for Switch.
Not a bad idea,
that's actually a really good idea.
But they, so now I feel like right now the Switch is the first time. Like, if you're like a core Nintendo gamer, I feel like this is the first time Nintendo's really been catering to you since the GameCube.
Yeah, you're right.
And like that's a long time.
There's actually some semblance of third-party support.
Like if you were
6 month, year after it launched.
Well, and also like if you were like like a big GameCube fan when you were like 10.
Yeah.
You're 25 now. And this is like
crazy.
And this is like the first time in maybe most of your lifespan that you see Nintendo behaving the way the Nintendo of your childhood did. So I understand like kind of the desperation of like they have to succeed this time. They have to get it all back. They have to get all these games that you see on the other platforms on their platform too, so it'll be like it was.
Yeah.
And that's just not going to happen because the thing you forget about that is the GameCube was a really freaking powerful piece of hardware. Yeah. Like the GameCube was a beast.
Yeah, man. Compared to PlayStation 2 for sure. Yeah.
And even to Xbox. I think the visual quality, like the image quality on some GameCube games through the digital out beats the Xbox.
No, I would say the best looking GameCube games look better than the best looking Xbox game.
I would say without a doubt.
Like Conquer, when they remade that towards the end.
That's pretty good.
That looked pretty good, on Xbox.
But also like a lot of the GameCube games.
But then you talk about like Star Fox Adventures from Rare.
But also like a lot of the GameCube games that look better than that are also good games.
Right.
And I don't like the Conquer remake very much.
Good point. Yeah, I didn't like it either.
But I mean, look, man, I still put in Rogue Leader once in a while, which is a launch game. I think it still looks pretty good.
It still holds up, yeah. Again, if you're going out of your component cables, it makes a big
if you're going out of the digital component, there's a reason people pay $200 for those things. It's like it's almost like buying a new system.
It kind of is, for sure.
So I understand why people are kind of desperate to see that kind of return, but it's not going to because they didn't make something that can support that. It's not for that. And like these third parties have to be interested in kind of like the Wii, making something that can either scale or function that way. And I don't think Black Ops is going to do that.
Yep. Let's get going. We have a ton of games to talk about still. Luigis Mansion, a GameCube game, nice segue, announced for 3DS.
Sure.
Why not do it like a remaster of that for Switch? So few people play Luigi's Mansion.
Probably that's coming later.
Maybe.
I mean, why release the worst version second?
Also have a question. What do we call that? Is it a remake when it's going to weaker hardware? Because they probably had to completely rebuild the game.
Yeah, I mean...
Or is it just a port?
It's kind of a
It's not a remaster, obviously, because it's on weaker hardware.
It's kind of a demake.
Yeah.
In a way.
98 DMake, one of the YouTube channels we curate.
Yeah, a little bit. And I wonder if it was just sort of built on the Dark Moon framework.
That's what it looks like. Yeah.
I mean, if it's there, why not?
Yeah. I mean, I love Luigi's Mansion.
Instead of the Switch.
It's really short, but really, I had a ton of fun with it.
I liked it.
And there's no game like it still.
I played it, well, there's Dark Moon.
Right, but I'm saying that no one has really copied the design of it.
Not really. I mean, why not? I mean, it's nice to see. The 3DS can have tons of ports instead of new games, too. Why not? That's That's where we are right now.
And Dark Souls, we already talked about that. Splatoon 2, single-player DLC.
That was surprising to me. I mean, not unwelcome.
But it cost $20, Matt.
Well,
don't you think that's insane?
I think a lot of the pricing on this stuff is insane.
$20 for...
Tropical Freeze for the Switch is $10 more than the Wii U version was.
Yeah.
Why? Why are these Wii U ports full-price games? It's stupid.
Well, money.
Right, but like...
I know people are going to pay it. A lot of people didn't play the games on Wii U.
But at the very least, if you have them on like Nintendo Digital, like if you have them digitally on the Wii U or something, it should count on your account somehow and you should get a discount digitally. Like, they should cut the people that supported them in their shittiest system, other than the Virtual Boy, a break on the price for these things.
I'd agree. Splatoon 2's existing single-player campaign is just a shell of a game. It's basically like, hey, we're going to teach you how to use these mechanics so when you go play multiplayer, you don't get annihilated. Very little narrative around it. Like the whole scrolls thing, there's lore.
Right. Well, look, man, I haven't played Splatoon 2. I barely played Splatoon 1. And watching the Octo expansion stuff in this Direct was like watching like a surrealist film.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand any of what I just saw.
Well, I don't know. Well, you probably haven't read any of the Splatoon lore that are in the scrolls. It's kind of dark.
Nintendo is kind of dark in the lore on a pretty regular basis. It's,
like basically,
Dark Souls isn't a total out of left field thing for that system in terms of lore matchup. Like,
yeah, you're right.
Zelda gets crazy in some places.
And convoluted. If you look at their official timeline.
But there's some real, like if you read some of the backstories and like, you know, all the Pokemon theory stuff and like the like Cubone's wearing the skull of its mother and it's man, like it gets real.
Well, Splatoon 2 is like a post-apocalyptic IP. Like, this whole world has sprung up after the world ended. So there's dark undertones to it, but so there's certainly fodder there to make something good single-player-wise.
So are the Inklings like mutants, or are they like they used to be humans, or are they squid who have elevated?
I am far from a Splatoon scholar. I read half the scrolls from the first game and a third of the scrolls from the new one, so I'm not an expert. But
because I
got the gist of it.
There is an actual school of thought in biology that if humanity was wiped away, the next intelligent species to raise up would be like cephalopod, squid and octopuses, because they have very advanced. Like if you
they've also survived.
If you eat calamari, you're probably eating a self-aware creature. Yeah, it's a little skeezy. So the idea that in a kind of a post-apocalyptic situation that like squid and octopuses would become the next extinction. I mean, they probably wouldn't dress like really hip teenagers, but like that's actually a real thing. Like if you look at what is it? It's kind of a trashy like documentary thing, but it's called The Future is Wild, and I think it's called something else in Britain. But it's basically about like the future. They jump millions of years ahead to see like what like the future creatures look like, and one of the things is these like I think they're called squibbins. They're squid gibbons, so they're like squid who have like left the water and they swing through trees and stuff, and they're kind of smart, and it's implied that they're going to be kind of the next primates and become like kind of like the next like intelligent species on the planet. And it's a fun series, but it's an actual thing that some maybe fringe scientists talk about. So Splatoon, not impossible. More plausible than Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
My issue with this...
Apes don't wear ties on their own.
Yeah.
It's not a thing.
My issue with this is $20. It's like, look, if you made a lackluster single-player campaign like you did for Splatoon 2, and obviously a lot of it was to rush it out and get product in the channels, but in the first year of the system's existence, that should be free. If you own Splatoon 2, this fixed campaign should be free. You shouldn't have to pay for it. And if you start looking back at
everything else has been free, right?
It has, yeah. It's the first paid DLC for the game. And if you look back at like the campaign DLC we got for Zelda, ultimately I was hugely disappointed in that. I mean, I'm glad I got like a code from Nintendo to get all the DLC for free. If I had paid for it, I would have been pretty angry over paying for what I got.
I was less irritated by what the DLC in the second thing in Zelda was, and more irritated by the fact that I think a lot of the stuff in the first DLC should have been quality of life.
Oh yeah,
like additions
absolutely.
to the basic.
I mean, they were just shortcomings of the base game that they fixed essentially. It's a patch. That's what it was. It should have just been a patch that you got for free. So I don't have a ton of, and look, I got to say, like during the Wii U era, I thought Nintendo handled DLC really well. But so far, what I've seen from the Switch, it's not been quite up to scratch. So
maybe with the exception of Hyrule Warriors, I thought that was a little gougy.
Yeah, but
Hyrule Warriors and Fire Emblem, I think, are like Fire Emblem. I think is a little extreme.
Well, Fire Emblem Heroes on mobile was taken down from the App Store yesterday or the day before.
Was it? I didn't.
Because Apple has new.
Oh, because you have to see the percentages of the things that pop out.
Yep.
Right?
It and Final Fantasy Brave Exvius were both taken down temporarily from the App Store yesterday until they can update them to adhere to Apple's new policies.
Yeah, they there was an update. One of the only mobile games I still play semi-regularly is Transformers: Forged to Fight, which is like it's like those game. There's those 3D fighting games that I think kind of started with like Injustice, where like you tap the thing and hold the thing to do the moves and stuff, and it's like. You run through a little maze and like do the thing, and have like a little one-on-one Street Fighter fights basically, and it's actually pretty good. It actually won like some like mobile game of the year thing at some World Mobile Game Convention in Spain or something. But they did an update yesterday where it's like we're preparing the game to have the percentages of the loot boxes.
You have to
noted, and we're trying to figure out the best way to do that.
Yeah,
and. The way it was worded really sounded like kind of a we're trying to figure out the best way to like adhere to the letter of the law without quite telling you too much information that makes you not want to buy the.
They're trying to skirt around the regulations.
Yeah, it was really like it's like maybe we could do it in terms of multiples of like you're 5 times more likely to get Optimus Prime than to get Ratchet kind of thing. It's like that doesn't tell me anything.
It really doesn't. If you don't know what the base number is, it doesn't do anything.
It's going to be interesting to see if any of these high profile games like try to pull a fast one and Apple just goes
Let's move on. Mario Tennis Aces was really kind of the focus of the Direct. It
definitely had the longest.
It had the longest section.
I really went into detail on how it plays.
And I think they needed to because the Wii U Mario Tennis game was absolutely abysmal. And I think Nintendo would probably realize, one, it reviewed terribly, 2, it sold terribly. And I think a lot of people may have looked at this game and said, it's just the next in the lineup. But it's not. Like, deep gameplay mechanics for that. I think it's looking great.
Yeah,
it's looking aces. I was pleasantly surprised by it.
The only 2 games in this whole thing that I thought were of any interest to me was Mario Tennis and Octopath Traveler.
Yeah, people are really hype about that game, man. Like, it's starting to really generate some buzz, and it's coming out pretty soon, too. And then there was, here's, to me, the biggest disappointment of the Nintendo Direct. Even bigger than them charging $20 for the Splatoon single-player DLC. Travis Strikes Again, No More Heroes.
Oh, yeah. What a letdown.
Wow.
I mean, I should have known.
Well, you're right.
It's like
we totally
came up and I'm like, yeah, okay.
I felt foolish.
You're right.
I felt foolish for assuming it was going to be a real No More Heroes game.
Heroes. They were very careful about how they worded the title and how it was all there. I just didn't want to see it.
Yeah, they if they had given it a number, if it had been No More Heroes 3.
No, it's what a punt.
What a punch to the gut, really. It's so, for those of you, you're probably seeing it on the screen right now, but it's a top-down cooperative hack and slash twin stick shooter.
Yeah, it's
garbage.
Yeah, screw it.
That's so bad.
And it's like now I'm not all that upset about Robin Atkindown's not voicing him because who cares?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Who cares about this game?
It looks like an indie game.
Yeah, well, just like everything else they showed, except for Mario Tennis.
Yeah,
and Splatoon. But Splatoon's already out, it doesn't count. It's weird, like so much weird stuff. Like the fact that they show, that you're doing a remake of Mario and Luigi, Bowser's Inside Story with like a weird expansion
for Bowser Jr.
And you show it in March, and then you say it's coming next year.
Yeah, 2019.
What?
A 3DS game.
You felt like you needed to tell us about that now? Like that was when?
I don't know.
What the hell was that?
I think, look, that's the 3DS. It's all they got, though.
Yeah, I know.
They have to give some people a reason to keep it.
Right, but that's the other thing. It's like, you're going to release 3DS games in 2019.
I know.
Okay, sure. I mean, great. I mean, I like the 3DS.
Nintendo did say that it was going to support Switch and 3DS.
Right, but it's just funny to me, like, for years, people, and you, to some degree, have been saying, it's like, oh, they got to ditch the 3DS, they got to make it just a Switch, got to ditch it, drop it. I'm like, they're not gonna. There's 40 million people to own that thing. There's too much money there. If you think Pokemon on the Switch is not also coming to the 3DS, you are insane.
Yeah.
Like, they have to get those sales.
Yeah. I was surprised too. 2019, my eyeballs almost popped out of my head.
And it's not, to me, it's not so much that the 3DS is going to get games in 2019. It's like, you felt the need to show the remake of the, how old is that game?
I know. It's a DS game.
Yeah, and it's like, you're going to show me the remake's coming next year. And it's not, if this was like the November Direct or something, I'd be like, all right, he's coming next
a few months, yeah.
Or like in the little montage that they show at the E3 press conference.
Like, are we going to see this game in every Direct now for the next year? We probably will.
Or is this the only time we're going to see it until it comes out? And they're just like, all right, we'll put it in this, and then whoever's working on it, you need to shut up for the next, for the next 10 months. We don't want to hear it.
Let's see what else. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. That actually is an underrated Wii U game that I think I'm okay with them bringing that to Switch, because a lot of people didn't play it, and it deserved to have more people play it.
If it was on the Wii U, put it on the Switch. Who cares? I mean,
might as well.
Nobody played it.
Obviously, they port over very easily.
And apparently, Switch owners who already own these things are willing to pay $60 frickin' to have them on a bus.
They are adding Super Mario Odyssey stages,
That makes sense. I mean, I think a lot of people saw this coming when Captain Toad showed up in Odyssey.
Yeah.
I mean, it felt like they were laying the groundwork there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, there was all kinds of little inside jokes in Odyssey with Captain Toad.
That's fine. I mean, Captain Toad is kind of a cool little, weird little thing. It reminded me, it's not a direct comparison, I guess, but it reminded me a little bit of Zack and Wiki on the Wii.
Yeah.
The puzzle thing.
A lot of people probably don't know what that is.
Well, that's unfortunate, because that's one of Capcom's best Wii games, and no one frickin' played it.
Yeah, that's why I said nobody even knows what it is.
I don't even know if there's a way to get that, if it's digital or something.
I don't know. I have a copy of it, and I'm assuming it's probably worth some money at this point.
I think it's probably available digitally on like the Wii U or something. If you have a Wii U and you haven't played Zack and Wiki, go look that up and see if it's on the Wii U store, because that game's really great.
Very unique. Yeah, very different. Then there were two relatively big ports. Crash coming to the Switch.
Yeah.
Insane Trilogy.
Here we come, Slumber Boy.
Yeah, so it's very weird.
Yeah, I mean, Crash has been on Nintendo systems before.
Yeah, back on the GameCube.
I think Insanity was on the GameCube or something like that.
Yeah, because there was a while where Vivendi owned Crash, and they were porting him to like everything. Yeah. It's still very odd.
But these are the games that were advertised with the guy in the costume with the megaphone outside of Nintendo,
yelling at Nintendo and Mario. Yeah,
it's just funny to see those on this now.
And then the other one, South Park Fractured Butthole. Mm-hmm. I've been on record on GameFace saying I was not a huge fan of that game.
No, neither was I. Although I did, when they mentioned it, I came to a revelation I'd never thought of before, because I've been playing Yakuza 6. Because one of the criticisms I had about South Park Fractured Butthole was that it didn't work in the sense that you made me go through the whole same area, same geographical location I'd already done in the first game.
Yeah.
And it just felt like a retread. Yakuza uses the same place every single time, and it never feels like a retread.
Yeah.
Because it's so much better at coming up with new content and new ways to use the location. And South Park didn't do that.
Yeah.
I realized that my criticism wasn't accurate in the sense that it was you reused the same location. The criticism was actually you didn't come up with anything new to do, which is a totally possible thing to do because Yakuza has done it 7 or 8 times.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I was just the thing when they showed that game, like for whatever reason that popped in my head, like, oh, that was it twisted my my previous criticism of the game and made me appreciate Yakuza even more. So.
Ubisoft cash in. I think they're just trying to get some of that money back from South Park. Yeah, they did not sell very well.
Well, especially after that protracted development cycle.
Yeah.
It got delayed so much.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So those are the big stories. There's other little stuff, but we actually end up kind of touching all that on all of it anyway.
Like, there's a bunch of the indie, there's like Undertale and Little Nightmares and good games, but games I already played that I already have
that
on
most people have already played.
It's just, okay. I mean, the Switch is increasingly sort of the day late and a dollar short platform.
It's turning into a poor dump
You're
site.
$1 short because you have to buy these things for exorbitant amounts. So it's like Little Nightmares is a great game.
It is, yeah.
But what are you going to pay on Switch? You're going to pay what? At least $40 for it, I think.
Was it? Yeah, because it's the complete edition, and you have to pay for a card, and the cards cost more than burning a disc.
Or you could just get it on Steam at the next sale for like $9.
Maybe. Maybe probably get it for less.
Even less than that. It's like. It's just not a financially responsible platform, and I feel like that's partly because they've chosen the physical media they have, but like and some of those games do have a $10 discount digitally.
Yeah.
But then they didn't give you the ability to, you've got limited storage space. You got to buy storage space.
You got to buy an external hard drive or a micro SD card.
You got to buy the micro SD card, and then only recently have you been able to transfer your saves in any way. And it's like, it's not built for that. The system could not possibly be more obviously rushed to market.
Yeah.
I mean, the online, everyone's talking about, why isn't Blizzard putting Overwatch on this? Probably, there's the hardware power problem, but even if there wasn't, it's like they're probably waiting to see what the frickin' online looks like, because they don't have that yet.
Yeah, I'm wondering how Dark Souls is gonna.
I assume Dark Souls is gonna have its own sort of system in place like Splatoon does. Luckily Dark Souls doesn't require any kind of voice chat or any kind of matchmaking or anything. Although this one is going to have like a co-op, more play with your friends idea. But it's like you don't need. All you need is an internet connection and the ability to make it work. You don't need to have voice chat. You don't need to really have communication beyond throwing the little skull, hello, that kind of thing. So it's kind of custom built for the Switch in that regard. It's like it's kind of this semi-anonymous sort of you don't get to choose what's happening situation, which is sort of Nintendo's online in a nutshell.
So what letter grade would you give this Direct?
Like a C. If Mario Tennis hadn't been there, there wouldn't really have been anything of interest to me in it. But Mario Tennis looks really good. I like tennis games, and I like Mario Tennis games. I was disappointed that the Wii U one wasn't worth my time, and this one looks like a big improvement. And
those games are, when they're good, they are really addictive.
When they're good, they're great. Yeah. And also it has a chain chomp in it.
That's right.
Swinging I don't know why I love that so much, but I do.
Because it's completely absurd. I'm going to give it a
story mode. It feels like a really fully fledged game.
Well, I think most importantly, the gameplay is deep and there's depth there, and I think that was really what.
And it gives you the option to play simple modes. You can just play tennis, and that's cool.
Right.
Like they're doing. I think they've done all the right things with that game from what they showed on the Direct. So I'm very confident that I'm going to like Mario Tennis.
I'm going to be a little more generous. I'm going to give it a B-. I think that's just the volume play. Just the sheer number of games that were announced for both 3DS and for Switch, particularly for 3DS, because let's be honest, we're at the end of the road for the 3DS, and I think a lot of people have the system. They're wondering, hey, what am I going to do with this thing for the next year? I think Nintendo provided.
You play Pokemon.
Yeah, still, again, more. And then the Switch, I hear you. You're right. It is kind of turning into this like port dump.
It's better than not having anything.
Right. And so,
it doesn't do me any good.
If Switch is your primary gameplay system that you're using now, maybe you commute a lot or you travel a lot and it's kind of turned into your home system, kind of filling it out with this stuff that other systems already have, does have some value. So I agreed. I would like to have seen something new announced. I don't know if you saw, but Retro Studios put up some job listings the other day. Yeah. And it's definitely not working on Donkey Kong anymore. Its new game is focused on narrative and branching narrative in unique and innovative ways.
I'll see them in 2023.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. But yeah, the lack of any
for the Nintendo Swatch.
Yeah, the lack of any real new announcements other than Smash Brothers, which is something that everyone's assumed and really known about for a while.
It sounds like it might actually be better than we expected. Because I think we were expecting it to be a port of the Wii U version with new content. But if these rumors or whatever I read are true, that it's actually a new game they've been working on since they finished DLC for Wii U version, that's a big deal.
Yeah,
it's a big thing.
In general, yeah. For me personally,
it'd be a big deal either way, but this is even better. Basically. Yeah, I do hope. I have to say, I know like competitive is sort of the focus of that franchise right now, at least in terms of like the longevity of it. But I'm most interested in kind of the story mode. Like I think the Star Space Emissary was the most interesting. It's not quite as far as I would go with it. I like to see that part of the franchise fleshed out more, like the story mode where everything crosses over and goes crazy. And they sort of dropped that in the Wii U version, and I'd like to see that come back.
If it turns out that Smash Brothers is a new Smash Brothers, I would bump my score up to like a B+.
Yeah.
If it turns out to just be DX, then the B- that I've given it it'll stay. So.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I don't know. I wasn't able to do enough digging on those rumors that I read to know one way or the other. But
we'll probably know by next week, but you won't be here.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Let's move on to our next topic. We're going to talk about something that had been brewing for a couple weeks. Donald Trump met with the video game industry yesterday. Yesterday was just a smorgasbord of big news. In fact, most of the topics for today's show were stuff that happened yesterday. So it's a good thing we did this on Friday. We're going to get out of way ahead of everybody else.
It's Thursday.
Yesterday was Thursday. Today's Friday.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't even know where I am anymore.
So yesterday, Trump met with the video game industry. He met with ZeniMax, Bethesda, basically, Take-Two, the ESA, and the ESRB. So the head of the ratings part of ESRB was a part of the meeting. And then Trump had basically all critics of the gaming industry. Jack Thompson, by the way, crawled out of his hole and found relevance once again for the first time since 2012 because
he's still disbarred, so forget it.
Yeah. So remember, this is a bipartisan thing because back in 2012, Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton were pushing to make it illegal for stores to sell M-rated games to underage kids. And I honestly have no problem with that at all. I mean, it's basically just enforcing...
You don't have a problem with government regulation of artistic expression? Because it was ruled unconstitutional.
No, I know it was.
Can't do that.
I know it was. But I don't... But isn't that...
That is not a thing that should be happening. The government's role is not to do that.
But why... But, yeah, I don't understand that, though. Why are the ratings in place, then?
Because
why do they exist?
They're a guide to parents.
So you're saying they're just suggestions?
Yeah. Same as movie ratings. It's not illegal for a kid to see an R-rated movie.
But movie theaters don't let kids in to see R-rated movies.
Right, but there's no legal backing for that. It's just that's policy of the company.
But I think sometimes if you put laws in place, it incentivizes either the game store or the movie theater to actually follow the rules.
Yeah, because that's a penalty for limiting expression of an artistic medium. You can't do that by the rules of the first. That's actual censorship. That's literally what censorship is. The government cannot state that. Not in America anyway. That's what the Bill of Rights says. You can do that elsewhere. That's what Australia does a lot. That's why the ratings board there can say like, no, you can't release this here because we're not going to give it a rating. We're not going to allow you. That's literal censorship. So we don't have that in America, and that's a good thing. We just have guidelines that say this is this thing, and you probably don't want your kid to see this movie or watch this thing, but they can if they want to, because it's not our business to regulate.
But see, from my perspective, not selling games, M-rated games to kids, it's not saying that they can't play them. It's you're putting the parent in the position of deciding whether they should play them or not.
Right.
They can still play them. They can still, as long as their parents feel like they're mature enough to play them.
It's the same thing with the R-rated movie. Like the theater, I mean, not anymore, apparently. But when we were kids, if our parents took us to the theater and said it's okay for them to see this movie, they'd let us in and we'd see it. But there's no law backing that. Like that's the whole point of a ratings board is so there is no law. Like that's why the MPAA exists. It's why the ESRB exists. Is so the government looks at them and says, okay, you're watchdogging your own shit. We don't need to regulate
No, I get that.
with laws.
And look, I don't agree with what Australia does or Germany does, where it's just like, you know what, this game's too violent. We're not going to even sell it in our country, and we're going to make sure people can't buy it. I don't have a problem with holding retailers to account to follow the rules. I really don't, because the games are still being released in America.
Not a rule.
The kids can still play them if the parents act as a gatekeeper and say, yeah, I'm okay with you playing that game. It's just making the retailers responsible.
They're already responsible. Like the way you hold someone to that is if parents care that much, they don't let their kids shop at that, or they don't go shop.
That's impossible, though.
It's impossible to stop people from going into a movie theater and seeing an R-rated movie. Kids sneak into R-rated movies all the time. Like you can't, but what you're saying is if a kid snuck into an R-rated movie, the theater would be legally responsible for that. Like they would be fined.
No, they wouldn't. They'd have to.
They
would have to have bought a ticket to see the movie.
Well, no,
and if they sold the ticket, then sure, they would be responsible.
Well, then you have no backing on that because what you'd have to do is you have to say like the illegal action is the child sees the movie in this place of business, and then that means you then have to patrol your place of business to make sure that's not happening.
No, the illegal action would be selling the ticket to the kid.
No. Like if you make that law, it also means that business is responsible for preventing that content from being seen by that child.
You can write the law however you want.
Well, then otherwise it has no teeth. Like you have to. It has to be
the retailers or the theater, they're the gatekeepers to the content.
And if you're not gatekeeping children from running amok in your theater to see things, whether they bought a ticket or not, you're still legally responsible for that.
But again, that depends on how you write the law. You could write the law in a way that the only thing that's illegal is selling the ticket.
Well, then what you're saying doesn't make any sense, because all you're doing is regulating something for the sake of regulating it, and not in the sense that like this content is harmful for a child to see.
No, I don't.
Yeah, like that's the point. The thing that should make that illegal is that the thing is harmful for the child to see. That's why you need to make a law to prevent them from seeing it. If then you can still get into this like facility and then see the content and there's no legal repercussion for that, why is the ticket illegal?
Because they can't see it unless they buy the ticket.
Right, but you're in control of your premises, so if you're letting children sneak into the theater to see the thing that they're not allowed to see, there is going to be legal repercussions for that as well, because it's the content that's the problem.
Even if
that's why this is not a law.
Look, even if there were, that happens so infrequently. I mean, you're talking about like half of a percent.
But what I'm saying is one of the reasons why it's not a law.
I mean,
because you can't enforce that.
Let's compare it to being 21 to buy alcohol. Kids still get alcohol. Somebody buys it for them, they drink.
Yeah, and if they are found with possession of that, they are in trouble, and anyone who got it for them is guilty of contributing to the delinquency of a minor.
Right, the gatekeeper.
And so the theater, the gatekeeper for this, is going to be in trouble for not patrolling their R-rated theaters and not letting children into them, whether they have a ticket or not.
Yeah, I guess we'll disagree to disagree on this one. And you're right, it was struck down as unconstitutional, and maybe it is. I just personally have no issue with retailers being held accountable for selling M-rated games.
Well, the way they're held accountable is supposedly that if they're doing that, then either the location that hosts them or the parents that shop there will no longer give them their business, like because they don't want to help this company that is selling M-rated games to children. But like no one does that because A, no one cares, and B, they generally don't sell M-rated games to children. Like, every time I've seen a kid buy an M-rated game, their mother or father's been standing right next to them. Like,
it happens, though. Especially at the mom and pop stores.
About as frequently as they sneak in R-rated movies, probably, yeah.
Really? Yeah. I think M-rated games are sold to kids more often.
You think 12-year-olds are bringing $60 in to buy Black Ops on a regular basis? No, their parents buy them for them. These kids don't get
I agree that most commonly underage kids get M-rated games because their parents buy them for them. I don't think the majority are the kids going in by themselves, but
who cares?
But I think kids buy M-rated games more often than kids sneak into R-rated movies. This was my point.
I don't know how you track those stats, but I'm pretty sure that
both
of them are pretty much negligible, and also who gives a shit? Like that's the kind of the thing is like, who cares if the kid's playing GTA? Like, it's not going to do anything to them beyond when I saw Alien when I was 8. Like,
well, I think it depends. I think if a kid's autistic or has some sort of...
I don't think that's... And also, like, if the kid's autistic, why is he buying video games without his parents' permission? Like,
well, it's like when Brent was on the show...
Why aren't you monitoring what they're doing?
Well, it's like when Brent was on the show, he brought up a pretty good anecdote. He said, when his kids watch TV and they watch a kung fu movie or a kung fu TV show... As soon as they stop watching it, they run around the living room and start kung fu karate chopping him.
Right.
And so you start talking about kids that young, they are very impressionable. 6 to 10 years old. Once they get older than that, sure. I mean...
Yeah, but then like you say, stop hitting people. Like that.
Right. But
that's what
that is a case where media does directly influence behavior in the real world.
But that's anything. Like you watch a football game and kids are going to run around and pretend to be football players. Like,
absolutely.
But like it doesn't like...
But you're talking about violent games where people are... I mean, that's the other thing we should bring up. So this whole meeting starts...
This whole meeting is a red herring.
It really is, absolutely. The whole meeting starts with a montage of the bottom of the barrel video game violence.
Which is gone now. I mean, they took that down.
Did they?
The YouTube link I had doesn't go.
I downloaded it today. I got it before they took it down.
Was it Sniper Elite or
Sniper Elite 4? Ironically, Wolfenstein 2.
Wolfenstein 2. Clearly the Nazi thing is going to be a problem for this administration.
Fallout 4.
There was Fallout 4, which was funny because they had to shoot the guy like 10 times to get the headshot to happen. Very ineffective caliber bullet. And no Russian was in there.
Yeah, no Russian from Modern Warfare.
Which is also ironic.
So ironic. Like, he doesn't... Oh, it's just a comedy of errors and gaffes. But So they start off the meeting by showing this montage of the absolute worst video game gore ever. And then it finishes and Trump says, "That's pretty violent, isn't it?"
Yeah.
And
I could do that with movies, too.
Yeah.
Hell, I could do that just using the series Hannibal.
Yeah. No cameras were allowed in the meeting, so we don't know exactly what happened.
They've learned that you don't want a camera live on Trump when he's talking.
On the side of anti-game violence, of course, there was Jack Thompson and pundits like that who have been around forever. They're just like like those little fish that swim alongside sharks.
Was he in the meeting?
He was, yeah.
Man, if I was actually anti-video game, if I was someone who really wanted to like do something about video game, I wouldn't want Jack Thompson within 5 miles.
I would keep him out of the meeting, absolutely.
Like, all that does is damage your credibility.
Yep. The Parents Television Council was there.
Yeah.
And so after the meeting, again, there was no cameras, very little reporting, but there were a couple official statements that were released afterwards. The ESA's official statement was, "We welcome the opportunity today to meet with the president and other elected officials at the White House. We discussed the numerous scientific studies establishing that there is no connection between video games and violence, First Amendment protection of video games, and how our industry's rating system effectively helps parents make informed entertainment choices. We appreciate the president's receptive and comprehensive approach to this discussion." And then the statement from the Parents Television Council. What I heard at today's meeting is that the entertainment industry is still fighting to maintain the status quo and is not ready or willing to confront the impact that media violence has on our children.
Which is 0.
And then, as a caveat...
Every other country has these games, too, and their kids don't shoot schools up.
That's what's been really disappointing to me, is nothing has come out of that meeting suggesting that that was ever said in that meeting. And to me, that is just the most blatant, obvious point that nobody can refute.
It's like, until you have a refutation of that point, I don't even want to have this meeting.
Yep.
Like, that's the end of it. It's like, where are the giant mass school shooting problems in Europe because of the same games being available?
By the way, there is not a single scientific study that links video game violence to real-world violence. None. Not one.
Just as you said with the Kung Fu thing, like, a heightened level of aggression after a competitive... But that's true of any competitive anything.
Yep.
Like, that's just how we react to that.
In a conference call after the meeting...
And most people, after they've had a really strenuous soccer game, do not go out and shoot anybody.
No. In a conference call afterwards, the PTC, the Parents Television Council, ranked violent media, including movies and TV, as its third leading contributor to gun violence, trailing access to guns by those who shouldn't have them and mental health. Mm-hmm. Not the guns, obviously.
Just saying,
it's not the actual guns.
There's a lot of mental illness in other countries, and this doesn't happen there.
Yeah. Nothing is going to come out of this, by the way.
No.
They'll never have another meeting.
Well, it's just a red herring.
This happened in 2012 as well.
Right,
They did.
It's a red
Biden
herring
did a
meeting. It's to make it look like they're doing something. It's to avoid talking about the guns because that's what the problem is. And the fact that it's easier to get a gun than it is to get licensed to drive a car. And just go, look, I'll give you a nerd reference that could have gone in that meeting. I collect Transformers. Megatron turns into a Walther P-38 pistol.
Right.
You can't sell toy guns in America without like a blazed orange barrel plug or something. It is harder for me to get an unmodified, no blaze orange plug Masterpiece Megatron than it is for me to get an actual Walther P-38 pistol. Okay? Like, that's how crazy this is.
Absurd it is, yeah. It is absurd. But I don't think anything is going to come out of this. This was all just the administration making it look like they're doing something, essentially.
Right. And most importantly for their NRA masters, making it look like they're blaming other things.
Right, yeah.
They have to spread it around like, we just don't know.
But it's not guns.
Well, also, they know if they can just drag this out long enough and like tap dance long enough, people will forget about it and stop thinking about it until the next time it happens.
Yep.
And they're probably hoping the next time it happens to kids in grade school because kids in grade school don't organize protests.
Yep.
That was the problem.
That's what they thought.
The problem. These were high school kids.
Right.
That's the problem, is it happened to kids who are old enough to do something about it.
And they are.
And they did.
Really impressive what those kids are doing. And in the wake of horrible, horrible trauma and tragedy, it's inspiring to see young Americans, regardless of what they're fighting for, just get involved, period.
Yeah.
Because really the problem with in our country is that young people just don't get involved at all and don't vote. And I'm not going to throw any stones because I'll be perfectly honest with you, I had never voted until this last presidential election because I really hate all politicians. I think they're all crooks. I think they're all in it for themselves and all the money and the lobbying. I just hate politicians. But this past presidential election, at least for me personally, I felt like I needed to finally get involved because, to me, one of the options was so awful that I needed to finally, for once in my life, take a stand in politics and draw a line in the sand for me.
I know some good politicians, but they're all local people.
Yeah.
But once you get to the national stage, like...
It's bad.
It's
the system makes them bad. I mean, that's just that's what you have to do to win, essentially.
I'm actually in favor of term limits.
Term limits, I'm in favor of.
Because I just feel like they get too comfortable up there.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
So I never got involved. So I was one of those people.
At the very least, make these corporate guys who throw money, make the corporate guys have to build a new relationship every 8 years.
Right.
So, right? Like, I've got to slow something down.
Yeah. And so I'm not going to throw. I'm living in a glass house. So I'm not going to throw stones. I did not vote until I was no longer really young. And so I don't want to...
I've always voted because, like, frankly, California politics are a giant minefield of crazy things.
Right.
And, like, so you got to vote in this state for your own interests on almost every imaginable level, or you end up... Like, that's one of the reasons... I don't know if you saw, like, there's the articles about how people are leaving San Francisco in droves. And it costs like $200 to rent a U-Haul truck to move from Vegas to San Francisco. It costs $2,000 to rent one to move out of San Francisco.
Yeah.
Because there's a shortage of trucks to leave San
Francisco.
Read that
the other
no
day.
one can afford to live there anymore.
I read that
and
the
it's
other
like
day.
At a certain point, it's just going to be the venture capitalists and the homeless guys.
That's pretty much what it is already.
And it's like... like part of that comes from just like the
See, if I had grown up in California, I may have had a different perspective.
Yeah.
But I grew up in Pennsylvania, where everything was just kind of vanilla, and you never felt. Seriously, though, it was.
Pennsylvania, everything just seems like it kind of works.
I mean,
it works well enough.
There's very little controversy in politics there. People don't talk about it that much. But anyway, it's been inspiring to see young kids get involved, and I think that's one thing that no matter how you look at it.
I would like to think that if I was afraid of getting shot to death at every time I went to school every day, I would get involved too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I know like statistically it's unlikely, but it's just like it's so common that like if that would be a thing that and if you're literally sitting there talking about putting metal detectors in schools which already happens, and like all that stuff is insane. Also, I mean, Jesus.
So to me, regardless of
like you're really talking about how kids are exposed to too much violent media, but your other idea is to have like the teacher strapped.
I know,
like
it's crazy.
Like, hello, exposure to.
So to me, the whole result of this is young people are activated, which is really good. And regardless of whoever they end up voting for, I don't care. Just the fact that they're involved and they have a voice now in politics, I think that's great. So if you're looking for a silver lining over all the crazy stuff that's happened over the last 18 months, I think that's it. That's one of them.
Well, it's nice to see. Like they're not. I mean, the kids that are the Parkland kids are not millennials. They're whatever comes after.
But the reason I bring this
up,
Gen
Z. But like, it's interesting to see that this generation has learned very early that baby boomers are not going to help you.
Yeah. And the reason I bring this up is because these kids have grown up playing games.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be an advocate for our industry going forward, regardless of what their other stances are.
Yeah.
They've grown up playing games, and they're going to be helping us as we get older.
Well, I always go back to, and I think I've told this story before, but I go back to an interview that Adam Sessler did with Bing Gordon at DICE, like in 2012, 2011, back then, I think. And I mean, I didn't watch it. I don't remember where it ended up. I think it was on the G4 website, but I was in the room doing production on it, and Adam asked, because this was right in the middle, like when Adam was, did that debate with Jack Thompson.
Right,
He was on NPR yelling at him, and like the host had to tell Adam to calm down. But like he asked Bing Gordon, like, we have this whole debate about violence in video games. Do you think this is ever going to stop or ever going to end, or is this going to be like something the medium has to defend itself from every 5 or so years?
Yeah.
Right, like clockwork right now, really. And Bing Gordon says, if you don't know Bing Gordon was a major EA. Was he co-founder?
He was. If he wasn't a co-founder, he was in on the ground floor. Yeah.
He's older, late 50s, I guess, by now.
Maybe older than that.
Maybe, but he's the closest thing to the Tick I've ever met in real life. He's a giant 6 foot something dude with a huge chin and kind of like just the booming sort of like jolly voice of just like, hey, what, it's if he did dress up and fight crime at night, no, I would not be surprised. But he said, well, here's the thing. I'm older than the average. He said he's older than the average gamer. He's like, most of the people that are making all this noise about violent video games causing violence are my generation. And eventually, we're gonna die.
Yeah.
And everyone young, he's like, he says to say, like, you and everyone younger than you grew up playing video games and know that that's not what happens. That
right.
If it did cause violence, there would be a lot more violent people around.
Oh yeah,
because
for
everyone
sure.
plays.
Everyone's playing.
And
yeah.
like these kids in high school and younger now, like the psychological studies have shown that if you don't play video games in their generation, you are weird.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like someone who doesn't play video games in that generation has more trouble socializing because it's such a part of their lives.
Brent brought that up. He said that's why he will allow his kids to play Grand Theft Auto even at their age, because he feels like the damage done to them socially for not being able to talk to their other friends who are playing it in a social setting is worse than the damage that's done actually consuming the content.
Yeah.
So
there's a real argument for that, especially if your kid can handle it. If you're
And I think as a parent, you probably have a good idea.
You have a good idea, and also you can step in and modulate, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moderate.
Moderate it. I think both actually works. Yeah.
It's and so I think Big Gordon always, I think he's right that eventually you'll run out. The people in charge who are making these meetings, I mean, they're all 70-year-old people that don't know anything about video games.
Yeah.
We're still we're in our 40s, and basically this medium is a bunch of people equivalent to us had to step in and defend the medium against their parents again.
Yeah.
It's like they were literally, Donald Trump is old enough to be my father,
right.
basically.
Yeah.
And it's the same fight we've been having since this whole thing began.
Since my dad didn't want to buy me an Atari 2600.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I mean, it's the truth. It's you're right though, and it's that generation. I mean, I hate to say it, is eventually they're going to be gone, and
it won't be forever. And there'll be something new. There'll be.
And like I said, it's good
VR.
It's good to see the kids younger than us rising up and becoming a part of the process.
Maybe they can head the next thing off at the pass when we're sitting around saying like, "Oh, all you kids in your AR goggles." Like I'm tired of seeing 20-year-olds like jumping on mushrooms that I can't see.
Right.
and on the sidewalk in my street.
I'm gonna give us more credit when we're elderly. I have a feeling we're gonna be okay.
I'd like to think, but I feel like it's just gonna be like people are gonna be screaming.
There will be something.
When we're in our 70s, there's going to be other people, at least if not us, screaming about how all these damn kids in their AR and in my day, and they're all going to be oppressing like cyborgs or something.
Right.
Yeah, like or sentient robots. That'll be our like Jim Crow thing. Yeah. Is like we'll have like robot drinking fountains or something.
Yeah, so
which doesn't even make sense because robots don't need to drink.
Right. Yeah.
But we'll do it anyway.
In fact, it's detrimental to a robot.
We'll do it anyway just to make them feel bad.
Right. So
put that in Detroit Become Human.
So I'm just guessing here. I don't think we're going to be talking about this again on the show for a long time. This was just, as you said, a red herring, a distraction tactic. Yeah. And it probably won't be brought back up.
One last desperate spark of hope for Jack Thompson.
Yeah, and maybe most importantly, we will never see Jack Thompson again.
Maybe.
This might be it.
I don't know. It could be.
He's pretty old now. Yeah. I saw the photo of him. I was like, wow.
I'm sure we would have seen Leland Yee there.
Right. If he weren't in prison
for running guns after years of saying violent things. What the hell?
I know.
It's like, is all of politics just projection?
I think it is. Well, think about how many politicians enact laws and legislation against like LGBTQ people, and then you find out that they're gay. They get caught in like a truck stop bathroom or whatever. Right. It's insane. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about probably the biggest game official announcement this week. Call of Duty Black Ops 4 officially announced. Which was
a little forced, it felt like, but here we go.
I do feel, I wondered. So at first I thought...
Well, if it was the logo was spotted on a hat, right?
It was... Activision planted that hat. Yeah, it was an NBA player who was in warm-ups wearing the hat, and it went viral and blah, blah. I think that was all part of their plan.
Yeah, it could be. It's impossible to tell anymore.
There are also, and I think why people maybe think their hand was forced was because rumors were starting to swirl about the game. Things were starting to leak out a little bit. So it could have just...
about time.
It was. I mean, this is typically how it works. So they showed the debut teaser. Very thankfully, the official title for the game is not Black Ops... I. It is Black Ops, the number 4, even though the logo is the 4 eyes.
The numeral 4.
Yeah, which just breaks your brain if you have one. And then they put out a teaser trailer yesterday.
Well, I mean, the I is not incorrect. It's used on clocks.
Is it really?
Yeah, it was a note to balance it with the 7 on the other side. It makes it a little more.
I was not aware of that.
Pleasing. It is, it is. I believe in ancient times, it actually was one or the other. It could also be done as a tally mark, which is how you keep track of kills.
Yeah.
Sometimes on the side of a plane or whatever. So
now 5 will have the slash through the 4.
Yeah, could be. I mean, wait for it.
Yeah.
Also, the main thing I feel is by not using the standard Roman numeral, I feel like they're missing the opportunity to make the L and the A in Black Ops the IV of the 4. It'd be upside down A. It could be again, especially because Black Ops has that sort of secret kind of numbers station conspiracy. What does the upside down A mean?
Right.
I feel like you could play with that as a logo. But I mean, it's a little predictable, I guess.
Yeah. So the big news, because they didn't show much. The teaser trailer was literally just a montage of past Black Ops games, and then they said
remember Black Ops? Remember Black Ops? Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And then there was a little tagline at the end, forget what you know or whatever, which I feel like they do with every single Call of Duty game.
Right. Every Call of Duty, the promotional material makes it sound like they're reinventing first-person shooters forever.
Because they have to. Because otherwise
you can't just say, hey, that thing you like, there's another one.
Because you have the whole internet mob mentality that says it's just another Call of Duty, and they try to counteract that narrative.
Well, any day now, I'm sure that'll work, and everyone will stop buying it. Don't give up the fight.
So they didn't give up many details about the game. May 17th is going to be the big reveal, the community reveal, where they basically bring everybody together and everyone gets to play it for a whole day.
Just in time to start building the hype cycle for E3.
For E3, and then it's just the same thing that they've done year after year. There were some tidbits, though, that were released, not even intentionally. The game apparently is going to be on Battle.net. Which is...
Activision's finally said start using that for something else, I guess.
Yeah, because Destiny 2 was the first, and it worked great. I will say,
it's
Destiny
there,
2 on
Battle.net,
it was awesome. It ran freaking great. So that's a big deal. Basically, dedicated servers, I guess, is...
Probably, yeah.
And then it's coming out on October 12th.
Yeah, moving out of their first week in November.
A month early. It is never not shipped the first week in November.
Yeah. Even Activision blinks in the face of Rockstar.
Think about that, Matt. That is huge. I mean...
They know.
That's crazy.
Nobody wants to be anywhere near Red Dead.
Because the thing, too, about it is that...
Red Dead isn't even really the 800-pound gorilla of the Rockstar stable.
It's not.
It's just you don't want to be anywhere near them.
It's the B team of Rockstar stable. And
although I feel like this one might turn it into something on the level of GTA.
Here's my thing, though. I don't look at Red Dead as it's going to sell 60 million copies in the first month.
I think it's a marathon.
Yeah, I mean, that's how Rockstar rolls. They put out a game, and then they'll end up releasing it.
It doesn't go away for the next
forever.
4 years.
Forever. It will just sell until eternity. So, to me, if I was Activision...
Whereas Call of Duty is more of a burst thing.
Yeah, it'll sell 80% of its copies in the first 3 months. And so, to me, I was shocked to see Activision acquiesce to Rockstar in this.
Yeah, it's... I thought that I could see them kind of moving a little bit one way or the other, but a little bit. I didn't expect them to just jump back that hard.
Well, it's a month earlier.
Yeah.
Which it is Treyarch, and Treyarch, I'm sure, probably.
Treyarch's on the ball. I'm sure.
I mean, the game might be finished already.
Right. I mean, they could probably launch it whenever the hell they want.
Right.
Really.
So I mean, I don't think it puts a pinch on Treyarch all that much, but
they've done it before. they've been here before.
Yeah, but I mean, that's shocking to me. The Call of Duty took a knee and was like, okay, it's Rockstar. They almost must be very confident that Red Dead 2 is in fact launching that first week.
Yeah, certainly Activision believes it.
Yeah.
Even if Rockstar isn't sure yet.
Which makes me feel a little bit better about my fantasy team.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen.
I don't know. We'll see.
The question becomes if Red Dead does slip, does Call of Duty move back to its traditional?
I think it's too late.
I think they're already printing the flyers.
They're printing the flyers. They've already got all their promotional media done with the release date in it. I'm sure Ant Farmer, whoever, already has produced 50 trailers for the game, and they're just waiting to roll that stuff out.
So.
What?
That's an easy slate.
It is. Yeah, I mean, you can go in and recut it. But
yeah, I mean, as long as you didn't get like Christopher Walken to say the release date for something like
yeah, but then you probably have all these standees that go to GameStop and all the retailers and Best Buy and all that stuff.
Actually, the voiceover thing I just said reminds me of a thing I want to mention, the Nintendo Direct. I don't know who they got voicing that, but like maybe let him read the script before he has to read it in the voice booth next time, because that dude looked like it sounded like he had no idea what he was saying.
Well, he didn't know. You could tell he did not know what he was talking about.
Right.
But you can tell he's not a gamer at all.
But you can fake that if you like let him walk through the script and like kind of familiarize him with what he's saying and how he needs to say. Like it sounded like there was no voice director in that.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. They just gave him the script and said, "Go get it."
Right. And it's like, you're Nintendo.
Yeah.
Like even as someone who isn't a giant Nintendo fan, like there's this level of quality that Nintendo presents that wasn't there. And like,
well, their early directs were pretty rough.
Yeah, but it's like, and also, I mean, they suffer from the fact that like they don't have anyone to replace Iwata.
Yeah.
In terms of,
I'm also pretty much over the whole.
Oh yeah, right.
He did it like 80 times in 30 minutes. Like, I mean, okay, we get it.
I mean, look, Iwata's a very charismatic screen presence. It's replacing him is going to be pretty much impossible. Like you don't get a corporate guy like him.
Yeah.
Like once in a lifetime, basically.
Yeah.
But wow. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's just a production thing
that
bothered me.
Well, that's the way we are. Black Ops 4, do you think it makes a difference that it's coming out a month early? No. Do you think it'll help it at all?
More time to sell, I guess. More time to sell? I don't know.
I mean, I didn't think they needed to move it, to be honest with you. And I think most gamers do know the first week of November is Call of Duty week.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you aren't aware and you don't care about Red Dead Redemption, you can still buy it that week and it'll be all the same. But like,
I really don't think it makes a difference. I don't see why Call of Duty.
I think Call of Duty can choose where it chooses release date. As long as you're in that window of the fall, it's fine. You know, it's cool.
And I will say this.
I don't think there's much else coming out. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the only other thing they'd worry about would be Battlefield. And I feel like Battlefield, while popular, is not going to really dictate what Call of Duty does.
Yeah, they never have. I will say this, though. My mom, she always did like a Christmas club where she'd put like a little bit of money aside with every paycheck, and then you get it at the end of the year so you can go buy Christmas gifts. Generally, those Christmas clubs do dole out that money in October. Because my mom starts asking me for Christmas ideas in October. So maybe that helps it a little bit. People have more cash on it. I don't know. I just can't understand why they would have moved out of the way for Red Dead. They're completely different games.
Well, then you got people that wait for kind of the Target buy two get one free sale that comes like near closer to Black Friday.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all the same space, and I feel like even if you don't get it on launch day, you're going to get what you get. Yep. So it's fine. It's not going to make any difference.
I don't think it makes a difference at all.
You want to separate your hype beast from the other hype beast. That's all.
Yep. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about Grand Theft Auto 6. Stuff leaked out?
Maybe?
Maybe.
It's hard to tell.
I really have a problem believing that anything about this game leaked out. So there's this YouTube channel called The Know, ironically, that has a spotty history with leaks. It has said stuff before that's been wrong, but it also got a ton of stuff right about Dark Souls 3 before it was ever announced. So it has been right before. It has been wrong before. And it came out and said that Grand Theft Auto 6 is set in South America / Vice City, which is basically Miami.
Yeah, you can travel back and forth between
via
them.
Boat, I'm assuming, most of the time.
It's a long boat ride.
It's also a long drive. If you're going to drive all the way...
Well, I'm going to guess you just like enter a thing, say, do you want to go to South America?
Probably. Hit the button, yeah. Female lead character.
About time.
Well, I mean, the other caveat with that, too, is that, you know, GTA 5, you played as several different characters.
Right, and one of them should have been a girl.
Yeah, no, you're right. There should have been at least one.
I thought...
And ultimately, there was really one lead character, too.
Yeah, I mean, Michael is the lead character in that game.
For sure.
Really. There's three, you know... If you're going to pick one person the story's about, it's about Michael.
It is, yeah.
And I, you know, back before we knew that we realized there was never going to be any more single-player DLC for that game, I thought that adding a fourth playable character that was a woman.
Maybe that was the plan.
Was an idea.
But they started making all that
happen.
GTA Online money, and they're like, screw that. It could have been possible. The final thing coming in 2022.
That's a long way away.
It sure is.
Like how
That's
long
4 years from now.
Like how is that leaking 4 years before release? If that's
well, I mean, we know they've been working on it for a
pre-production
long time,
yeah.
but holy cow, what would that?
That's no GTA this generation. That means Red Dead Redemption 2 is the GTA of this generation.
Would that be 10 years between releases? When did GTA 5 come out?
I want to say 5 was fall 2012.
2012. It was. I think it was.
Was it? It's either 2012
or maybe
or 2013.
It was either late 2012 or early 2013.
I can't remember if that came out when I was still at G4.
Regardless, we're talking about 9 to 10 years between releases. That's the part of these rumors that I have a really hard problem believing. Like, I just can't see it being another 4 years before this game comes out.
Yeah, but at the same time, Rockstar can do whatever the hell they want.
I mean, the biggest problem is how well GTA 5 has continued to sell.
2013.
Like the first couple months, right?
September 17th, 2013.
Of 2013?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I knew it was fall.
I thought it was earlier in the year for some reason.
No, I knew it was the fall. I just didn't remember which year it was.
So it's only been 4 years right now since it came out.
A little over 4. Well, 4.5.
Yeah. I mean, so coming up on 5. And now you're going to say another 4 years?
9 years.
I don't believe that. I don't think that's right.
Well, that would be...
and you're right. That would mean no GTA for PS4 or Xbox
who made
One.
Red Dead Redemption 2?
I believe it's Rockstar San Diego.
Rockstar San Diego doesn't exist.
But the team, like, you're right, they absolutely dissolved that squad, but I think it's the same. They kept a lot of people that came and worked on the project. Really?
Because I was at the DICE Awards when they won Red Dead Redemption 1, like an award. I don't remember what award it was. It was like it won something. And the host was like, because we knew a bunch of the guys who made it were in the audience, and they're all like, we don't work for them anymore. Like we
can't accept the award.
So one of the lead guys got up and said, like, yeah, we all got fired after we finished the game, and like, so we aren't Rockstar anymore. Like that team doesn't exist anymore. But like, thanks. I'm glad someone liked it, even though our bosses fired us for it. That kind of thing. Like it was like there was some definite bitterness.
Yeah,
there.
I can see that.
And
understandable.
And it was like, and so like, Rockstar San Diego isn't a thing. And at least not the people that made that game. I don't know who's making that. If it's like Rockstar, but if it's Rockstar North, and maybe they made that instead of GTA 6, and now they're starting on GTA 6, and that would be about the right amount of time between now and then.
It would.
Because Rockstar, it was like GTA 4 came out in 2008, and like April 2008.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And then we had the 2 DLCs, and then 4 years after the DLCs, we got 5.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we should be ready for another one like now.
Yeah, but instead we're getting Red Dead Redemption 2, and if Rockstar North made that, then maybe that's the difference.
Interesting. 2022 seems insane, regardless of what happened. I mean, first of all, Rockstar is
2022
gigantic.
is not a real year.
That's
like some Jetsons thing.
It really is. It really seems
Who
that
can
way.
play GTA 6 when we're busy with our flying cars and robot maids?
And to me, regardless of how much money they're making off of GTA Online, they're going to make that same money off of GTA Online with GTA 6. It's not like GTA Online is going to go away when GTA 6 launches. It's just going to continue with content from GTA 6.
Well, and presumably there's also going to be some equivalent in Red Dead.
Right.
So Red Dead Online will probably have a very similar situation.
Yeah. I'm surprised we know so little about Red Dead 2. Yeah. I mean, we're about 6 months away from release?
I will say this, though. I was talking to, I was at a car dealership and buying a car because my girlfriend needed a new car. And the guy who helped us was this younger Russian guy, and he's from Russia, but he's been here for years and years. But he's a giant gamer, loves games. Realized that my shirt had gaming stuff, and started talking about gaming stuff. Like you could tell, like this is what he does. Like
did he give you a good deal?
Oh, yeah, he took care of us, but he was like this. He knew, he knew G4 and all that stuff, and like we talked about. And at some point, he's like, I have never talked like this to a customer ever in my life about this stuff. Like never. And he's like, oh, I can't wait for that. Like Red Dead Redemption 2, I can't wait for that. And like his big thing, he plays PUBG. He loves PUBG, and he doesn't like Fortnite so much because it's too cartoony for him. And he mentioned Red Dead Redemption 2, and I said, oh yeah, Red Dead. He's like, I don't know anything about like that. It's like just that, like the one. I'm like, yeah, well, they're gonna have a battle royale mode like PUBG in it. He's like, And you could see, like you could see in his eyes, he's like, his life just changed. He's like, oh my God, like, what? Oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, there's a Battle Royale. They just announced that's going to be in it. He's
That
like,
is great.
He's like, oh my God, I need to plan. Basically he was like, he just something turned over in his brain. He's like, this all just became so much bigger than he thought it was going to be. Already he thought it was going to be big.
It's
like,
great.
So I think that being in there is going to be a big deal. Like you could see this man's soul change. That this mode he loves is going to be in this other game he can't wait to play, and now they're all coming together.
Wait until you tell him it's going to be in pretty much every game going forward.
I told him, I'm like, look for it in everything. It's going to be. He's like anything.
Battlefield, it'll be in everything.
Yeah, so I'm like, I think they might have a hit on their hands.
Yeah.
In a way that we're not maybe even totally prepared for, even knowing what Rockstar is.
Yeah.
And wait till they put that Battle Royale thing in GTA 6.
2022 just seems way too far off to me, and that's what makes me suspicious of all the other information that came from.
And also, like, if you're that far out, anything can change, even if this is accurate.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you could just completely change the setting in that amount.
You'd start completely over.
Because there were rumors about GTA Tokyo and all this other stuff. There's been other rumors before this.
That would make kind of sense. I have a very hard time believing GTA would ever leave America.
Yeah, me either.
It's because too much about
the whole series is a satire of America.
Right. It's too much about that.
Yeah,
and like the being able to go to South America from Miami would make sense because there's so much there.
Drugs.
Well, drugs, and also because like a ton of Central American governments are only what they are because the United States decided to prop the Banana Republic.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Like we have interfered in domestic policy and self-government in countries all up and down the continent.
Yep.
And a lot of like what we blame as immigration problems or like external, they come from situations we have created with our own foreign policy.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what Rockstar likes to take shots
at.
And satirize in the name of pointing out how ridiculous it is. And if I could totally see them doing that to like kind of step up their commentary to the next level, because to be honest, I thought GTA 5 was a little stale in that regard.
Yeah, it was. They played it a little safe.
They did. They absolutely did. And I would like to see them kind of tackle something a little more ambitious, and that would definitely be more ambitious.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of fodder now in America for Rockstar.
Well, that's the other thing.
I mean, maybe Rockstar just scrapped everything.
I think that's completely possible. Like, look, man, if you're making, let's say they were working on GTA 6 simultaneously with Red Dead,
right?
And at a certain point, Trump wins the election, and you're like, we have to completely start over. How do you satirize that at that point? At that point, you have to completely redo everything because anything you came up with that was that ridiculous
it's not really that all ridiculous anymore. Yeah,
like, and it's if your business is satirizing the American dream and the American point of view,
you had to start over.
Everything changed in November 2016.
It really did.
Like they had to kind of do another thing, and it's going to be real interesting. Also, because I always think it's interesting to see what outside American points of view are. And while the Housers in New York do deal, the games are made in the UK.
Yeah.
Or is it Scotland?
Scotland,
That's where it is. And so somewhere now, sometimes you get like that kind of like more UK perspective on things, and especially earlier on in the series, you'd see, GTA 3 in particular, the radio stuff, you could tell had an angle on things that you would only get outside of, like looking from the outside in, which is one of the reasons that made it funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're working, because that's the thing about Red Dead Redemption is like it doesn't tell us a whole lot about how that's going to play out.
No, it tells us nothing pretty much.
Because there is satire in Red Dead Redemption, and there is Red Dead Redemption 1 definitely had that element to it.
That edge.
But it had it more in the kind of the way The Witcher has Geralt be sort of sick of dealing with stupid people.
Right,
like,
right.
It's kind of like the I'm just trying to do my job sort of thing. And like Red Dead Redemption had John Marston was interesting in that he was a very moral person in one particular way.
Right.
And
everything else, he just ran out the window.
Out the window. But he wouldn't cheat on his wife.
Right.
That was the only thing he would have. Which is interesting. That's an interesting character
for sure.
as video games go, because usually it's just pure id.
It is, yeah.
So yeah, I can see the idea. If we're talking about 2022, I could see that happening just because reality got so weird. GTA had to get weirder.
Yeah,
and that necessitated a bit of a going back to the drawing board.
Also, would make me completely disagree with 2022.
Yeah,
I mean, by then, does the narrative even matter?
Well, it's interesting.
I guess it depends on if
well, it's
what
an interesting
happens.
question because like a lot of GTA, they've chosen different eras to say different things.
Right.
And like GTA 3 was interesting in the sense that it took place when it came out, whereas then they instantly went to the 80s with Vice City.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing.
And the
Like
early
they could go
90s
back
with San
to
Andreas.
Right.
One of the things about GTA 4 that I think worked against it was that it was all of a sudden modern day again.
Right. Yeah.
And I felt like they didn't have a lot to say about it at the time.
Yeah.
They didn't have GTA
everything
4
hadn't fallen into place yet.
Yeah. And GTA 5 worked because you were kind of in the middle of this like weird period. GTA 5 addressed sort of a middle-aged ennui that like just seems irrelevant now.
It does.
Like the idea that anyone could be,
although people keep buying it.
Sure, but like, but that's a different. Like the story and the content like focuses on kind of Michael's. I'm successful and I did what I wanted to do, and now I hate the fact that I have nothing else to do. And that kind of midlife crisis sort of like doldrum thing, and the question of like recapturing.
I think it also addressed entitlement a lot.
Yeah, and also recapturing the craziness of youth in the form of Trevor versus like mentoring the next generation in the form of Frederick? Not Frederick.
Frederick.
Who's the other guy?
Oh, in GTA 5?
Beginning with F. Franklin.
Yeah.
Like kind of like the generational gap there was interesting. But like the idea that would be your focus on that game now is crazy.
Yeah,
because,
yeah,
like,
would not.
It's the most mundane possible material. I mean, even then it was a little folded in for the GTA series.
But the thing that's great about GTA is that they're such big games that they do always have kind of a central theme, but they go way out onto the fringes.
I'm just hoping that, and
depending on how much you play it is how much you get exposed to those fringes.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that Rockstar decides this time around to punch up a little more.
Yeah, I'd agree.
There's always been a little bit of like we probably don't need another bar full of like transgender stereotypes to drive by and laugh at because they look funny.
Right.
Like I've always found that a little weird and distasteful. They're like, we just make fun of everyone. Well, that's not a strategy.
Yeah.
Like not.
Well, I think if you go as far as Rockstar does, you kind of do have to be an equal opportunity offender.
Yeah, but there's smarter ways to tackle that than be like, ha, that woman looks like a man.
Yeah. I mean, that was low-hanging fruit,
right.
which Rockstar usually doesn't use too much.
Which is, and also that thing always stuck out to me because it was a thing. You never really go to that bar in the story. It's not part of anything. It was just there because they thought that was.
It was a gag. Yeah.
They thought it was funny to make fun of those people.
Yeah.
And I don't find that very tasteful.
There are certainly more clever ways to do that.
And I'm not going to say that like, you can't do anything because I'm going to shut down you in the name of my idea of comedy. But it's like, have a reason for your social satire. And like, does the trans community really need to be like kicked, poked that way?
Yeah.
Like, what are you trying to do? Like, there always has to be
I mean, I think a lot of people would argue that a lot of the communities that Rockstar pokes fun at don't necessarily deserve it.
They're just
like,
it's just
the way it is.
Different, and it's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy to come. But it's like that's how South Park works.
It is.
Like, and Rockstar could maybe aspire to be a little better than that.
Although South Park to me has gone down the crapper.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Is like South Park plays the everyone's an idiot both sides thing so hard that comedy needs a point of view.
Yeah.
And without that point of view, it lacks some bite.
Yeah, it's just kind of scattershot.
Yeah, and Rockstar, I think, fell victim to that a little bit in GTA 5 in terms of the satire. I think in terms of gameplay, it was still fantastic.
Well, apparently, Matt, they have 9 years to get it right.
Yeah, I got a long time to fine-tune. So.
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about another game that was announced this week.
The subway in LA will be done before that.
It will. It's crazy. This game was actually announced officially. The Division 2 was announced by Ubisoft. And I will commend Ubisoft for this because retailer leaks 99.9% right. They're almost always right. If a game is leaked to a retailer, it's almost always legit.
Like retailers don't just make up things and put them in their systems.
It makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah. And so Ubisoft acknowledged this, and after the retailer leak happened, Ubisoft said, yep, Division 2 is in development. In fact, we're going to blow it out at E3 this year. They didn't say when it's coming out, but I think the retail listing said like end of this year or whatever, which is pretty crazy. Matt, what would you like to see in the Division 2? You didn't stick with it that long. You stuck with it longer than I did, though.
I finished it. Like I finished the base game.
Oh, I did too. I mean, I went and played the whole game.
I played a little bit.
But I didn't stick around for the Dark Zone stuff.
I played some Dark Zones. I played probably like 100 hours. Not as much as I played a Destiny 1, but I played it for a while. I enjoyed it. I liked how it felt. I just felt like at a certain point there's only so much snow-covered gray I can look at.
I did like the winter setting, though.
I liked it, but it was very repetitive, and I was hoping for DLC and expansion stuff.
That was in the summertime or something?
To go beyond, or like...
It never changed.
Or to kind of work your way up through Central Park seemed like a really interesting change of venue or something.
Well, yeah.
But instead they just put us in the sewers.
Yeah.
What? Like, come on.
Well, whatever happened? Wasn't the whole idea of the game taking back Manhattan?
Yeah.
Like that, it just went away.
It just never happened. Like, I was like, because it looked like the goal would be kind of like, as you updated, you'd sort of work your way up Manhattan.
Right, and you clear portions
different things, like eventually you'd be in the fancy districts, and like you'd kind of be fighting your, I'm like, I was like, oh, I wonder if like the big finale will be like fighting your way through Harlem,
right?
And like whatever, like
that never happened.
That could be some really interesting because you don't think that like the different neighborhoods of Manhattan are very different environments for a firefight. Not to reduce a city to a gun battle, but like.
Well,
like, that's basically what this is.
It is a shooter.
Right? Yeah. And like it just felt like there was just tons of wasted opportunity. And like you run into the problem, like one of the things in kind of end game stuff in MMOs or like very online driven games is like you want to get the cool stuff and you want to get the fancy stuff, and like there isn't really anything. It's like everything's just sort of tactical gear. And like Ghost Recon Wildlands has that problem too, where like there's not a lot of stuff that like you can put on your character that says to everyone else like, look how much cool shit I have because I've been playing this game way too much.
Yeah, Call of Duty's like that too. I mean, most shooters are that way.
And it's just like it just like it was a lot of good ideas, but it just felt done.
So I think the biggest change that needs to be made is kind of delivering on the promise from the first game, which is that geographic progression. And look, I doubt that they're going to set it in New York again, and maybe it's LA this time. I don't know how that falls in with the continuity of the story from the first game. It's hard to say.
Like, I mean, I guess I could see them as just sort of continuing to crawl up Manhattan.
But that would be really disappointing to me, because that is the thing I missed. I didn't feel like I was progressing through anything. Like, as maybe through the game I did, but it was maybe because of the marketing for the game that before it came out, that the idea of, okay, I've done this in the base campaign. The DLC, I'm eventually going to fight my way through the rest of the 5 boroughs until I sweep and clean New York. Never happened.
Yeah.
And so I would like to see something like that, where you feel like you're actually making because fool me once, shame on you. Right. Fool me twice, shame on me. I'm not going to get fooled again into thinking as I play the game, oh, something bigger is coming in DLC. I'm not going to believe that.
I'd definitely like to see something more on the scale of what Wildlands did.
Yeah.
Both in terms of size and in terms of like variety of location and environment. Like maybe it doesn't all have to take place in a city.
Yeah.
Maybe there can be some surrounding areas. That kind of
Agreed. Thing. I think the weather needs to progress in the game. Yeah. Like, I love the winter setting of The Division for the base game. But as the DLC starts wearing on, it's like the seasons never change. It's like it just stays stuck in that.
But also, like the weather was an interesting sort of visual wrinkle when it first, but it didn't matter.
No.
Like it didn't have any impact on anything.
It didn't. And then the other thing I would say, and this isn't just a criticism of the first Division, it's a criticism of all persistent games, is just a greater variety of everything. More enemy variety. Certainly more voice samples for the enemies. Hearing them say the same crap over and over again. And I felt like after I got to like the 20 or 30 hour mark of that game, I was just doing, it just was grind. I just was killing the same enemies over and over, same missions. The Dark Zone mixed it up. I did not like the design of the Dark Zone where you had to all meet at the chopper, and like it was just like the ATM machines at first in GTA 5. You're just a sitting duck waiting there while other people could just camp it. And so I didn't get into it. Like, I played the Dark Zone for a little bit, like for the purposes of review and evaluation, but I never went back to it because I got burned a couple times. I'm just like, I'm not going to waste my time playing through this where you can also just get killed randomly.
I like the Dark Zone to some degree. We had a good team, and we would go in, and we outnumbered the people who were trying to be jerks, and so like and then like you'd get people who also didn't want to be jerks. Like over a couple times when we had like 7 or 8 people, like, you know, on the copter spot, and like you'd have like a couple guys trying to grief, and like everybody was just, you know, they had no chance.
And it certainly provides opportunity.
You could only put I think 4 bags on the chopper,
right.
So and it was nice because like you'd kind of come up with like, you know, so like 2 of us would put our bags on, 2 of the other people would put their bags on, so we all had a reason to stay, and like It was good stuff, but the problem.
I think your mileage may vary. Some people have great experiences. Sometimes you have.
Well, the problem for me was that like the loot you get is just not interesting enough. I mean, at a certain point, you're basically just grinding for a gun that's like 5 or 6 more than what you already have.
Right.
Like specific. It's like, and that's not interesting to me. Like there's no. I'm not looking for at least like in some. I think that's the downside of sort of the modern military. Setting with this is like at least like with something like a fantasy setting, like the sword I'm looking for is like on fire and shoots lightning.
Right.
Whereas this is like that's a slightly
it just does more damage.
Gun.
Yeah.
It's not an interesting like treadmill to be on.
And there's no way for them to avoid that unless they just completely rework the whole franchise for the second game and make it sci-fi or fantasy.
Right. But the trick there becomes. The loot can't be the only incentive. You have to make what I'm doing fun.
I think the problem is for a lot of people, the loot is good enough.
This seems to be true.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people seem to.
It's like I feel like I'm swimming upstream against those people.
A lot of people drifted from that game.
Yeah.
I think once things were they kind of complete. So like the Destiny 1 thing, where it's like, well, I did all this stuff. And now the only thing I can do is like just grind for incremental improvements.
Yeah.
And some people do that and some people don't. And I'm just not one of the people that can do that. I petered out on Destiny 2 that way. It's like once you've just got me sort of chasing slightly higher numbers, like I don't have any reason to be here anymore.
I will say one thing about Ubisoft with The Division is it did support it. I mean, there's no denying. I mean, there's a big patch. Maybe it just came out or it's coming out like next week. I mean, gigantic patch.
I'm very impressed by Ubisoft's dedication to the support of The Division and the crew.
The crew, not even just the crew. Siege. Look what I've done with Rainbow Six Siege. It went from a game its Metacritic average was like 7 or something like that. Now it's one of the biggest games in the industry. Look at For Honor. For Honor's still huge.
Still going.
Yeah, so Ubisoft has kind of found that secret sauce. Maybe I'm crazy for criticizing them with the way they handled the Division 1. I'm just speaking personally that it didn't hook me in.
There's room to differentiate the Division further from Ghost Recon Wildlands.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Those two games feel similar enough that I feel like one of them should like break in one direction or the other.
Yep, and we got Far Cry 5 coming up here pretty soon too, which seems like it's going to stay primarily single player
it seems like
focused.
Far Cry.
Yeah.
It's Far Cry.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to turn into a loot grinder, so to speak.
Make Far Cry great again.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our last topic of episode 120. Biggest rumor of the week, hands down. PlayStation 5 dev kits sent to developers.
It seems early.
Also, not only did it just happen, they got them at the beginning of the year. So they've had them for a couple months now. And so we were talking earlier about the Switch, and you're saying how Nintendo and Sony are competitors. But I'm wondering, so this week, it was also announced that the Switch in its first year has outsold like the PlayStation 5 or 4's first year like by 3 times. Like it tripled the sales of PlayStation 4's first year in Japan. The Switch did.
In Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Switch is a big Japan hit. That's true.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if that has bumped up the timeline for Sony in conjunction with what appears to be really lukewarm sales for PS4 Pro.
Well, I would think that the solution to that would not be to let's sell everybody a more expensive system immediately. I feel like that's kind of running the opposite direction from the Switch. I don't think Sony's making their decisions based on anything Nintendo's doing. I think Sony's just following their timeline, and they're probably more concerned about being overpowered by the Xbox One X if that ever gets any traction.
I mean, Nintendo's starting to eat Sony's lunch in Japan. And if we said on the show many times, like, don't underestimate a Japanese company's concern with how well their products are doing in Japan.
Right.
Even though it may seem insignificant on the grand scheme of things, there's a lot of honor in your product doing well with your people.
Right, but you're also still assuming that they see the Switch as their competitor, which I don't think they do, because they're just competing for completely different audiences. Like, if you want the Switch, you don't want the PlayStation 4. Like, there's like unless the PS5 is a handheld, like that's not a competitor. Like, because Because if you want the PlayStation, you want power and you want performance and you want 4K stuff and you want media and you want to be. And if you want the Switch, you want to play Nintendo games.
Yeah.
Like those are two different things. Like Sony can't compete. If they are competing with that, if this is a reaction to that, Sony is crazy because that's not how you win that fight. You can't win that fight because you're after two different things. And Sony has already proven they can't compete with Nintendo in the handheld department twice. So I can't imagine that this is any kind of reaction to that. It's just they're moving forward as they're moving forward, and clearly Xbox has shown that, like, okay, we'll play this incremental hardware upgrade game with you, with the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro. So now I guess PlayStation 5 is the obvious next step, if we even call it the PlayStation 5.
Right, I think they will call it that. But so if you look at history, dev kits going out at the beginning of this year generally means the console launches the end of the following year. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's realistic?
I mean, it's possible. I mean, here's the thing: is like
PS4 Pro would then be on the market for 2.5 years.
Yeah, well, it's an interim. It was always an interim thing. The other thing is like then the PS4 Pro, much like the Xbox One S, becomes the new normal for the PS4.
Yeah.
And I mean, it kind of makes also there's like the dev kit thing is like, look, it looks like going forward, the upgrades to these systems are basically going to be the same architecture but more powerful. Like they're basically just there's going to be PCs but without.
They're going to be backwards compatible in perpetuity, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's true. And so like it's not like the old days when like they had to develop the cell processor or Nintendo had to decide which things go in which thing.
They even had everything was like custom chips like the Dolphin chip.
Yeah, where everything was like some kind of crazy custom NVIDIA or ATI thing, and and Dreamcast ran on some custom version
Windows
of Windows CE and all this. It was like it was it was a different time, and now these things are basically just PCs with a corporate branding on them, and it makes it a lot easier to sort of keep the train rolling. So it makes sense. The question for me becomes, what do you do with this system that justifies putting a one higher number on it?
I know, yeah.
And I assume that has to be some kind of feature thing more than a power thing.
You would think?
Yeah, like it has to do something else.
But Sony's hardware generally isn't known for doing something.
No.
I mean, it's usually at least, the last couple gens it's been powerful. More powerful. Some would argue PS3 is more powerful than Xbox 360.
I wouldn't.
I don't know. I think that's debatable. I think it was harder to create games for.
Every single multi-platform game runs worse on PS3.
No, you're absolutely right.
Paradise. Sony's own people got some really impressive stuff. I mean,
right.
Because it's like when you look at the difference between like Uncharted 2 and everything multi-platform on it, it's like, how in the world can Call of Duty not run well on this thing compared to the 360 version, but you can get Uncharted 2 out of it?
Because it was the more powerful system. It was just more difficult to develop for. And third parties weren't interested in learning how to write to the metal on the cell processor.
Yeah, because it wasn't in their interest.
It wasn't worth their time to do it, absolutely. But I still think, ultimately, it probably was the more powerful console, as far as what you could, if you spent a lot of time on it, what you could get out of it.
But on paper doesn't matter, the realities of retail. And like, it was like the thing where the original idea for the whole thing was a cell processor just did everything.
Yeah,
if you wanted it to do
the
whatever,
emotion engine,
you just made it work. No, that was PS2.
Right.
But it was like the same thing. We're like, there's 7 cell processors that just does everything. Yeah. And they took it to the developers, and the developers were like, we are not writing our own graphics rendering engine every time we want to make a game on your damn system.
Yeah.
So that's why there's this GPU in there and there's a sound processor in there, because they were tacked on because the developers like, we ain't doing that. That's completely inefficient.
To answer your question of how do they rationalize putting the 5 on there or the extra number? I think they rationalize it from a business perspective. The last episode of Geif, I essentially contend in that episode that the mid-cycle hardware upgrades have been a complete failure. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at Xbox One X, you look at PlayStation 4 Pro, they have not released the exact sales numbers for PlayStation 4 Pro, but if you look at their data, they did say that 1 out of every 5 consoles they sell is a PlayStation 4 Pro. So all you have to do is take the data of how many consoles they've sold since the PS4 Pro launched, and you end up getting around 5 or 6 million PlayStation 4 Pros have sold.
Now the question becomes, does that surprise them at all?
Right. What were their expectations?
Because Microsoft seemed to indicate that they consider the Xbox One X to be a boutique system that's only going to sell to a certain demographic of
Sony has never really come out and said...
Sony has never really... I mean, in general, Sony doesn't seem to say much about their expectations of things. At least not since that time they said they expect you to get a second job to afford a PlayStation 3.
Right. I think the number is a dog whistle. It's the the thing that subconscious thing that people hear that they're like, oh, it's
this is
time.
the new one.
Right.
Yeah.
And even if it is just a shade more powerful than PlayStation 4 Pro, they could even conceivably just create a new form factor for PS4 Pro, put a 5 on it, and it would sell way better than PS4 Pro.
I mean, I think we have to be looking at something that's more powerful than the X.
Oh, absolutely. I was just using that as an anecdotal story, but
I would, the thing that differentiates, I'm not sure what you make that. Like, it's so hard to
PlayStation VR 2
or I don't know.
That's why they make all the money, because it's their job to figure it out.
Yeah. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Yeah. If you would want to put a percentage on PlayStation 5 coming out at the end of next year, what do you think it would be?
I don't know. I'll give it like a 50-50. It does fit nicely with my whole Last of Us 2 will be a PlayStation 5 launch title.
It does.
Theory.
Yeah.
But I thought that was going to be like we release it first on PlayStation 4 and then a 5
Well, I think they will
later.
put out a PS4, a lot like Breath of the Wild.
Right.
It'll be like one of those deals where they put it out for the old system and for the new one.
Well,
but again, the way the systems scale now...
Right. I would argue that would all be the same disc.
Yeah, you're probably right.
It's just
a PC.
You're literally just turning the settings
It's just
up.
a freaking PC now. That's all it is. I would probably put the percentage a little higher than 50%. I'd probably put it around 65 or 70%. I mean, if you look at the timing of it, 7 years it'll have been by then.
Maybe that's why Days Gone got delayed.
It's possible.
They can't run it.
Maybe.
It has to be a PS5 because they can't fit all the zombie tech
It's possible.
on this underpowered Pro.
I would put it a little higher. I would also, I think I'm a little different than you. I do think that Sony views Nintendo as competition because I think that they look at the people who are buying the products as the same people, the same consumers. And I think Sony looks at an audience not necessarily as what games do they play, what games do they like. I think they look at it like what segment are they buying products from. Sony has a broader view of the consumer because it makes more than just video game consoles.
Yeah, but I think the other things they sell are so compartmentalized away from those might as well all be different companies, and they all hate each other.
Yeah.
So, and Sony's been looking for a way to get rid of their TV division for almost 10 years now.
Yeah.
I think, like you say, a good chunk of the Switch audience are people that only play Nintendo systems, and I think the rest of that audience have other consoles already. And I don't see any upside to pursuing the Nintendo-only people, and I think you've already got the people that use the Switch as a secondary system because most of those people use PS4 as their primary system.
Yeah.
I just don't. If you want to play for video games and not just Nintendo games, you've got a PlayStation 4.
I just think that if you're just talking about video games, the big story is the Nintendo Switch.
Right.
And right now, the Switch is kind of on the verge of becoming like a phenomenon. It's like right there teetering. And I absolutely think that the success of Switch at least had a little bit to do with Sony sending out those dev kits and maybe bumping up the release date for PS5 because they're about to lose the narrative here.
But I also feel like they don't have a lot else on the docket, and like maybe this is just how they intend to kind of take the conversation back, not just from the Switch, but from Microsoft. Like, because also you can't forget that while we haven't seen a lot of motion on it, looks like Microsoft is starting to realize they need to get their act together.
Yeah.
And
Microsoft is a wild card.
Right,
absolutely.
and the last time Microsoft got their act together, they dominated an entire generation that Sony thought that they got to dictate.
Absolutely.
Remember at the beginning of the 360 PS3 generation, they said the new generation starts when we say it does.
Yeah.
That was literally a slide in their E3 presentation.
I mean, Ken Kutaragi, boy, he had quite the ego.
Yeah. And you remember when the PSP came out and they'd had to kind of cram the board for the buttons on the face of it to one side.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And the American release didn't happen, but the Japanese release happened first, and there was a problem where some of when you press the square button, it was missing the board and it wasn't registering, and people were complaining. And they did a press conference, and Ken Kuragi got up and held the PSP up and said, "I believe we have made the most beautiful thing in the world. Please do not criticize it." Which at that point you realize you're dealing with a crazy person.
And then very shortly thereafter, he was ushered on out the door.
And it's like, Like, I mean, Sony's been absolutely on the crazy train to self-destruction before when it comes to underestimating the competition, especially the competition from Microsoft.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to make that mistake again. Maybe ignoring Nintendo as real competition is going to bite them in the ass, and the entire industry is going to shift over to underpowered games on a handheld platform that we already own on a PC for $40 more, but I don't think it will. I think it's going to remain the thing I own to play Nintendo games versus the thing I own to play video games is what comes from Sony or Microsoft. Probably Sony.
Yeah.
I admit I've been playing more stuff on the Xbox One X recently because it just runs well.
Yeah.
But I really don't care which one I play on at this point. It's like
I don't care ever.
It's like if I play,
give me the best experience. I'll play it. I don't care if it's called the Matt console.
If the frickin' Switch ran everything better, I get it on that too. I don't care. I don't care who made it. I just want the best experience.
Absolutely.
And usually that's PC.
Yeah, you're right. I've been playing a lot more PC games lately. It's been dry on consoles this year. I've been spending a lot more time on my PC. In fact, I played my PC more in the first few months of this year than I played all year last year. Mm-hmm. So I'm right there with you. And I don't give a crap what brand name is on a piece of hardware. If it's a good piece of hardware that has great games on it, I'm freaking there. And that, I think that does put us in the minority a little bit in our circle of
Well, also people aren't going to spend that kind of money for this. You know, the video games basically have to be a life priority for you to spend the kind of money and time that we do on these things.
I need a good rig to do all the other stuff I do for SIFTD, so it's easier for me. And I can write all that stuff off on my taxes and blah, blah, blah. So it makes it much easier to kind of take in that stuff. But the next year is
if I was a person that was like spending a limited amount of money on video games and I needed to pick something to play a bunch of stuff on and I didn't want to spend the money to build a high-powered PC, I would be generally picking the PlayStation because it has the best first-party lineup.
And not even just that. I mean, all the third-party stuff runs great on it. And generally, the indie stuff, PC first almost always. First port, always PlayStation 4, always. So unless Microsoft jumps in and gives some cash to the indie developer to give them a window.
I mean, Microsoft can do it. I just, after the last 4 or 5 years, you kind of got to sit there and be like, well, I'll believe it when I see it.
I don't think we're going to see a true change at Microsoft for at least 2 years.
No.
Because it took Microsoft way too long to figure out it had a first-party problem.
That was in my New Year's prediction, I think, when we did that early in January. It was like, Microsoft they know they got to do something, but you're not going to see it. These corporate behemoths move slowly. Like the changeover isn't overnight.
Yep.
So it'll get there, but I think Sony's just trying to get out ahead of it.
Yep.
With the PlayStation 5, and maybe because 2019 to me is like the absolute earliest you can launch this thing, and launching early doesn't always help you, but you never know. Like 360 launched a year before the others, and it did real well.
It did really well.
The power isn't always the thing that wins the game.
The power is hardly ever the thing that wins.
No.
Hardly ever.
And if you're going to take one lesson from the Switch, it's got to be that.
Yeah. Or the Wii.
You got to being there first or being the only one who does a particular thing is far more important.
Yep. The Wii, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1. I mean, it could be argued.
So the question becomes
Xbox 360 was the weaker of the consoles too.
Yeah,
so.
But it's the one that did online right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the question becomes, what is the PlayStation 5 going to do that the others can't do as well or at all?
Yeah.
What does Sony think the key is, and then are they right?
Yeah.
Because Microsoft thought the key was the set-top box idea. To filter all living room media through one box almost to the exclusion of caring about how the games worked on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that bit them in the ass.
Yeah.
So, and Sony has not always, Sony's idea of the cell processor was not the greatest idea they've ever had either.
Yeah, I mean, this idea this generation was basically VR, and that's kind of fallen on its face too.
Yeah, I mean, it's doing all right, but it's like kind of one of those things where it's that Microsoft, it's that Bill Gates order that they got for the Xbox division back in the 90s, where it's like, we need to own this space.
Yeah.
Do it.
Literally the space of someone's living room.
Yeah. Do it. It was just do it. And PlayStation VR feels like that. It's like, this is going to be important eventually. We need to be known as part of this world.
Yeah.
And we saw, and the Oculus thing this week was funny too.
It went offline. Every headset rendered worthless because of a certificate.
Which, by the way, when they stop supporting that Oculus
That's
Rift,
what's going to happen.
Your headset's going to be worthless.
It's a piece of
at a
junk.
Point.
Yeah. I mean, look, people will homebrew it. And
they'll
figure it out.
But it's like,
who wants to deal with that crap, though?
Man,
most people don't.
I am never sorry I picked the Vive over the Rift. It just never.
Oh man!
Even though the Rift is a more comfortable headset to wear.
Absolutely, yeah. All right. Time for our trailer of the week. Fitting in with our earlier topic about gun violence and Donald Trump and all that kind of stuff.
I almost thought you were going to say Donald Duck.
No.
I don't know where you're going.
I was like, where did we talk about?
Gun violence in Kingdom Hearts, right. That's what the show is about.
And also the segue from VR is nice. The trailer of the week this week is for a game called The American Dream. Have you seen the trailer for this?
Is this that one where it's a world where everything is done with guns?
Yeah.
Yeah, and people are like coring corn.
So look, this is not done for political reasons. This is just a really freaking funny,
it's just funny,
awesome trailer. It's called The American Dream. It comes out next week for PlayStation VR, Vive, and Rift. Let's roll it.
The home. The busy centerpiece of American life. It's where you'll find a diligent wife tending to her family's needs. Take a peek inside, and you might find her preparing her husband's favorite meal. Caring for their beautiful child. Or even taking a little extra time to make sure everything's nice and clean. Meanwhile, the husband is hard at work providing for his family. Whether he spends his days as a blue-collar worker in a bagel factory or as a young corporate manager on the rise, it's his job to bring home the bacon. On the weekends, husband does his part around the house as well. Managing finances, tending to the garden. And then finally settling down for some well-earned R&R. And a delicious home-cooked meal. The kind of family everyone should aspire to be. With the kind of home everyone should want to have. This is the American dream. The perfect way of life.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for GameFace episode 120 right here on Sifted Games at sifted.net. If you are consuming the show on iTunes or you're watching the archive somewhere else, please consider pledging to our Patreon at patreon.com/sifted. That's how we have this space. That's how come Matt is here. That's what makes the wheels turn. Also, if you're someone who's just been a basic subscriber to Sifted all this time, it would be great if you could take the moment to give us your $2.50 from Twitch Prime. It makes a big difference for us. Also want to apologize. I've been a little bit under the weather for like 3 or 4 days, so I'm sure my voice has been a little nasally today. I've been fighting through it. Hopefully you can forgive me for that. Matt will not be here next week.
No, probably not. No.
Probably not. You have your procedure on Monday.
Yes, Monday is minor surgery day.
Yep.
So, we'll see how I come out of that.
Yep, so everybody wish Matt well. I'm confident that he'll be just fine. He's in good hands.
I'm very hard to kill.
Yep.
In general.
So
they're good people doing this. So.
Yeah, so keep him in your thoughts throughout the next week as he recovers from his procedure and goes through that whole rigmarole. We will have a guest next week. I'm working on it right now. Stay tuned to our Twitter for updates on that. And
one way I will try to jump in on
the chat. That'd be great.
And let everybody know I'm still here.
That would be awesome. So best of luck to Matt through all his procedures he's got going on this week. Thanks for watching. GameFace is up and out. that one shot where she just takes a gun up to the corner. And she shoots it, and it just it's so great. Oh, and then she's stirring the cake batter with the gun and licks the gun. It's so great. Oh man, that trailer! I literally laughed so hard yesterday when I saw that for the first time. All right, let's wrap up the show.